If like,
Hell yeah, dude. I am, for one, very impressed by how you memorized all these old Rikshis names, which I can barely even remember the current ones. So, like, very impressive. Great job.
oh yeah.
Well, I have like an obsessive personality. So when I get into something, I want
can tell. I can
learn.
tell.
I want to learn everything about it from all time. In high school, that was David Bowie. So there's like, if you look at the bookshelf back there, there's, I don't know, 7 or 8 David Bowie books, all of which I've read. Because that was my thing at that time. I know everything about David Bowie that there is to know. Not quite as like, I'm a little rusty since then because it's been a while, but there have been a few things here and there. And the most recent, like really the one with staying power has been Sumo, because I got into it late 2019 and it's just been like my number one interest since then. It's all I want to read about. It's all I want to watch. It's all I want to draw about. It's, it's my thing.
Nice.
I love
One of the things we usually ask people during these interviews is like, what kind of music are you into? And so Bowie is an excellent choice.
That's true. I've got the posters.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
Very
Diamond
nice.
Dogs.
Yes.
Hell yes.
Let's not, if you get me started, it'll become a David Bowie podcast. But lately, as in like very lately, I've been listening to the Grace Jones cover of La Vie en Rose by Edith Piaf, which is really good. Really good. It's a banger. The original is also a banger. Everything by Edith Piaf is a banger if like French music from the 40s can be a banger, but I think it can.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
I've been having like a Biggie Smalls phase. Like I've been just, I don't know, like Hypnotize will come on in the car and I'm like, this is the greatest song ever written. And then,
hell yeah.
So here's my problem. And this is something, like I said, there's nothing I won't talk about, but I'm not going to look great here. For me, it takes a tremendous amount of like public notoriety for someone to be on my radar enough for me to think, maybe it's time I like look into this person. And that notoriety can be for any reason, good or bad. So about a year ago, a sort of cascading downward spiral, I won't say began because it had been happening for a long time.
I feel like this is going to be about Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. Okay. I was going to get excited for a moment because, like, that's one of the ones that I'm obsessed with. But anyway, continue.
The avalanche of Kanye West's career.
Oh,
really
shit.
Up. And so about a year ago, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Maybe it's time I get into Kanye. Let's see what this is all about. And that journey has carried on. And then, of course, it's only after I decide to get into Kanye and like the end of the year. So my Spotify Wrapped is already like, it's signed, sealed, delivered, that all this horrible shit, really pops off. It's not to say he'd never done anything sus in the past, but like,
yeah.
breaking records at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely a lot of my my rotation over the last probably 8 months or so. Trying to phase it out. It's hard, I mean, he's got, I don't need to say this. He's got some great songs. And then, I've been listening to a lot of Anka, which is like, it's a Japanese music genre that's from like predominantly enjoyed by septuagenarians. And I say that because I brought it up to my Japanese teacher who's 78 years old. And I said, I've been really listening to Anka a lot lately. And she's like, I love Anka. So we bonded over that, but it's just, I don't know. It's good. Half the songs sound the same, but they're all great. So you can't complain.
Nice.
I think these are some of the more, even with Kanye thrown in there, some of the more unique answers we've gotten to that question.
Yeah.
For sure.
I like it. Shaking it up.
Hell yes.
Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx. Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx, Sumo Punx.
My name is Sabrina, and if I had testicles, they would be so fucking huge that I could lounge around in them like they were a giant beanbag chair. And just, sit there like nestled in my scrotum, playing video games, whatever.
It's so cozy in there.
Yeah, and warm.
And this is Matt. And if I had labias, I would take my labia minora and I would stretch them out like huge bat wings and I would jump off of tall buildings and attempt to glide around town. And this is Sumo Punx.
Would you already have giant labias, or would you stretch them out until they were giant?
I guess I'd have to stretch them out until they were giant.
Okay, so you wouldn't already have just like literal beef curtains.
I mean, they would be like retracted, you know, they'd be rolled up. It'd be like two like big cigars, you know, just like chilling like beneath my labia majoras.
A couple of ancient scrolls between your legs.
Yeah, and then I would roll them out like huge fucking bat wings, and I'd say the magic words, which is of course bat, and then just like and just fly around. It'd be fucking great.
All right. Well,
so that moving on.
We have a very long episode today, but we had a very entertaining guest. So let's go ahead and just blow right through these upcoming events. We do have a lot of very exciting upcoming events.
Hell yeah.
So coming up very soon in like 2 days, basically. February 25th, the SoCal Sumo Open Tournament, hosted by Honu Sumo in San Diego, California. We are going to be doing the commentary on the live stream for this tournament.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so tune in to the Maximum Effort Studios channel on YouTube if you want to check that out.
And you can also find links on the Honosumo Instagram. They've been sending links out. They got all kinds of like wild pictures of all the fucking participants. They've got wild pictures of us.
So many cool competitors.
Yeah, it's going to be fucking great. I am so stoked. The only thing that makes this somewhat disappointing is that we can't be there in person. Yeah. I would have loved to go to fucking San Diego, but we do have Texas representation, so that's going to be cool.
That's true, yeah.
All right, March 11th, the 2023 U.S. National Sumo Championships.
Oh my God!
So this tournament is the qualifier for the 2023 World Championships, which would be held in Japan, and the World Combat Games, which is kind of one of those things that's held every few years. So anyway, this is going to be held at Orlando Indoor Soccer in Orlando, Florida. You could definitely find more information on the internet.
Oh yeah, so there's tons of information out there.
Talk to Cornelius Booker, talk to Kyle Ferreter, and talk to Ryan White. And they're pretty easy to find in the sumo land. So if you have questions, just, ask a sumo dude.
Then on March 25th is the Kuma Sumo Bash. This is going to be hosted by the Antioch Sumo Bears of Antioch High School. That's right, a sumo club in a high school in the U.S.
The children's are our future.
Indeed they are. All junior boys and girls divisions, so no adults, just the children's. They'll also have demonstrations and instructions. This is going to be held at Antioch High School in Antioch, Tennessee.
And keep an eye out for more information on this. You could go to Instagram on the TN Sumo account. Do we say Tennessee Sumo or a TN Sumo? Whatever.
It's TN Sumo.
It's the abbreviation for April the 29th. That is a Saturday. This is going to be the Rollertown Showdown Sumo Tournament at Rollertown Bear Works in Salina, Texas.
Yeah, is it Salina or Salina?
I heard someone say Salina. I've been corrected both ways, honestly. I'm just going to go to that 7-Eleven by Rollertown and ask.
It doesn't matter.
But we're going to be there, and we're going to. Yeah. There's going to be vendors. They're going to have. There's a beer that's going to be released, a Dallas Sumo Club inspired beer, and I believe that's going to be rolled out the 28th, which is that Friday. So you could go to Rollertown the 28th, try the new beer, get psyched up about it, and then show up for the sumo tournament on the 29th, get even more jazzed up on that new beer, and scream your face off while fucking dudes just run at each other fucking full throttle. And then there's going to be women folk running at each other full throttle. There's going to be everyone bashing into each other full throttle, and people are going to be having beers. There's going to be food. There's going to be loudness. It's going to be raucous, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So you should fucking go if you live in Texas or anywhere near. Man, fuck it. If you live in New York, just fly out here and fucking do it. I'm talking about you, Oscar Dolan.
And as always, you can track upcoming events at sumo411.com, which is a very useful website created by Yamamoto Sumo Dojo's own Kellyanne Ball.
You can also find a lot of international Amazumo events on there too.
Yeah. So we got to sit down with Noah Wellbrock-Talley. That's what this episode is about. It's all about him and how fucking cool he is with his fantastic fucking drawings and his spicy takes.
Spiciest. That's what I loved about this
on
dude.
The world of pro sumo. So he actually does artwork that is used as prizes for the Sumo Kaboom podcast bingo competition that they have every boss show, and for Scott Finley's World of Sumo tournament competitions that they have as well.
Yeah.
So
his art is featured all over the sumo internet. More than likely, you have seen it. If you're a sumo person, you've seen his art.
If you've seen a charcoal drawing that looked like a photograph at first, it's probably his.
Oh, yeah. He's fucking amazing.
Especially if it's Takakesho.
Yeah. And he has, he does like paintings and, what's the other one that he does?
Oh, like the chibi art?
Yeah, his digital dudes.
His digital dudes, yes.
Dudes.
I've seen lots of people with stickers of his artwork. He's just got this huge fucking obsession with sumo, and he just creates these amazing works of art that are sumo themed. So we have a pretty long episode with him just because there was so much fun stuff to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it now. Here is Noah Wellbrock-Talley.
Been recorded by the host or a participant. Got it. I got it, Zoom.
We're doing it.
Yeah, they want to make extra sure that you know you're being recorded.
Everything does that nowadays.
Unless it's the CIA listening in, then it's like, we're not going to tell you that.
But we know. We know. Hi, CIA.
Hi. Thanks for watching me through my light switch. You know, always keeping an eye out. We always appreciate that. Anyway, today we have Mr. Noah Wellbrock-Talley.
Cleared that first hurdle. It's a big name.
It is. You know what I said earlier? It sounds like the name of a British lord. And then he told me that you were in Kansas, and I was like, okay, a Kansasian lord. Or whatever you call people. Sure, a Kansanese lord. Whatever.
You know, if you hadn't told her that, we could have done a prank the whole show. I binge watched all 5 seasons of The Crown, and I'm
excuse me, I've watched a lot of Downton Abbey, so I think I could handle this.
You have a very well crafted accent. Like, I can hear the nuance of that.
I can do Scottish too, but I think Scott Finley might give me shit for it.
Yeah, he'd fly out to the US to kick your ass, and it'd be really funny.
Do it.
Man, Scott Finley was like so much fun. I see a lot of your stuff like on like his videos.
Oh yeah, this guy's an artist, by the way.
Yeah, he is visual artist. And if you've ever been anywhere on the sumo social medias, you have seen his stuff, I guarantee.
Hey.
Oh yeah, very good. I really love the photorealistic, I think they're charcoal drawings of the Pro Rikishi, right?
Yeah. I just I finished the new one like an hour ago. Takakesho here.
Oh, wow.
Because, so I do these, I started doing them just for fun, like shortly after I got into sumo, which was actually not that long ago, a few years. And Scott does these competitions through World of Sumo, and I'm sure he'll be happy I'm plugging him, where I think the way it works is you pick a team, and the team with the best like score collectively at the end is the winner. And the top prize for the last couple of years has been one of my drawings, because he asked if I'd be willing to do that. And or maybe I offered, I don't even remember, but I have been doing it for a while. I am glad, because when I started doing it, it was just Terra no Fuji. And when somebody wins all the time, I just sort of, unless I loved them from the beginning, and I wasn't around long enough to like experience the whole Terra no Fuji story from start to finish. So when he showed up, I was just like, who the fuck's this guy? Like,
I kind of feel the same way. Yeah,
he's just eating everybody up, and I was getting really sick of drawing him. And I wanted to continue to do this until I got enough, like I did it long enough to draw Takakesho, because I started after November 2020 doing the competitions. I was watching at that time, and I'm glad I did. And I've even been thinking about taking a break, but I said, if he fucking wins again in March and makes Yokozuna, I would be so pissed at myself if this was the time I decided I wasn't doing this anymore. So I've got at least one more in me, and then I might take a break because I'm busy.
Oh my God.
I know, just I can imagine you, with the charcoal, like, God damn it, turn up Fuji. Tired of your stupid face.
It's so many Terano Fujis. It's like 4 or 5. I mean, yeah. And he's great. And now I bet I could draw him from memory. And the thing is, I think this is probably how all sumo fans are, is we're super fickle. I was pissed at him when he was winning all the time. And then in the Hakuho Basho, I was rooting for him in the end. I wanted him to beat Hakuho. And then now that he's gone, I just miss like the consistency and the presence of a proper Yokozuna. And I think he is a really tried and true Yokozuna. Not to say that he is like going to be legendary, huge status, but I think that he fulfills his role perfectly when he's there. And so I am looking forward to his return. And I hope that he comes back really solid and gives us another good year or something of whipping ass.
Agreed.
I'm sure he will. And he's just, he's healing up from another surgery. I mean, look at what happened after the last time he had to like take some time to heal up from a surgery. He fucking climbed all the way up the ranks and became Yokozuna. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot more awesome stuff from him.
I hope so. And like whenever he's gone, I'm going to miss him.
But I will say, I don't want him to win. What's he at? 8? Is he at 7? Is he at 7 titles? I think it's 7.
I don't know.
I was about to say, I think 7 or 8, yeah.
Math is hard.
7. I don't want him to get to 11 because the sumo fandom treats Yusho as like Dragon Ball Z power levels. And I think that if people tried to tell me that Terano Fuji was Akebono level, I'd have an aneurysm because it's just...
Oh my God.
Akebono is his own beast. And literally.
Yeah.
He does not get enough credit. I don't think there's ever been a Rikishi that Akebono couldn't beat on the day that he's on because he is such a unique specimen in terms of sumo. I don't think anyone's had greater attacking power. He's not even my favorite. This is just what I've observed. I've only followed sumo for like since the beginning of 2020. But in that time, I have watched like 85% of the viewable sumo on YouTube from throughout time. I especially from 1970 on. And I've never seen anybody who could do what Akebono did. And it's not even like a difficult thing to understand. He was 6 foot 8 inches tall and 500 pounds.
Yeah.
The amount of force that he could generate. There were 2 people he ever fought who wouldn't just get fucking thrown if he hit him. And that was Musashi Maru and Konishiki. Because, I mean, even Takanohana, who was amazing at just powering through people, like he had to be totally on his shit to deal with Akebono because it was just crazy. And I don't think, Futabayama, Taiho, those guys are amazing. Yeah. They had no analog for this person. They never fought anyone who remotely resembled what Akebono was. And I think, he did not accomplish what they did numerically. But if you threw Akebono in the ring with anybody from throughout time, he would have more than an outside chance at just wrecking their shit. That's my opinion.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Seriously, he's just like a force of nature. And sometimes, and I know this is probably going to piss somebody off, sometimes it looked like he wasn't even trying. Like he was just...
Absolutely. I put together... I ripped a bunch of footage off of some live stream of old Eurosport footage from 2000 where the English commentator guy named Sid Hoare, who I think's dead now, but and I put it together and it was Akebono's last Yusho, the 11th one. And the thing was, and I also did a video with Scott about this, so because I read the book and all this, but he returned to kind of the pushing and thrusting after a few years of sort of mixing in the belt here and there and doing kind of what Konishiki would do in his sort of peak era where he would just like wrap people up and take them out because he was so big they couldn't do anything. He returned
kind of what Matt does.
It's a strategy. It's a great strategy. And he returned to the pushing and thrusting. And that last Yusho, it's crazy. He is just knocking these. I mean, these are high-ranking dudes. These are these are Musoyama, Kaio, Chio Taikai, all these people. Dejima. I don't know if he actually fights Musoyama. I don't remember. And he's just, this match is over in 1.5 seconds every single time because when he hits you, you're fucked. If he hits you right, you're fucked. Like, it's a coin toss with Akebono. I mean, and that's how pushing and thrusting goes. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. Oshizumo gets so much shit in the online community, which drives me crazy as a big Takakeisho fan, a Musashi Maru fan, an Akebono fan, a Kotozakura fan. Like, just like, I don't know. I don't think they understand. And I think you don't really understand it until you start to do sumo. Because me and my brother have just started doing sumo.
Oh, hell yeah,
dude.
And I got fucking nodular fasciitis in my arm, and a doctor told me I have to stop for a little while, which pissed me off.
Oh, damn.
But, it's because I was winning so much.
Nice.
And like you just, as soon as you try it, you realize, oh my God, like everything about this is so much more complicated than it looks and so much more difficult than it seems, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone just makes it sound like all you have to do is just go, oh, you're just pushing and shoving, but you have to be accurate. You have to know where to push them. And sometimes it doesn't seem like it makes any sense, but like the lower, or even if you push the belt, if you push on the belt, it like actually pushes them back a little bit further. And I was like, whoa, but I want to stand them up. So I'm like, oh, well, I got to get the chest. So it's so much going on. It's a little bit more complicated, but people like kind of react to you a little bit differently whenever your arms are swinging and you got this look like those Daisho-esque battle faces. Yeah. And then you start going for the face and for the neck. People are like, oh, and they're easier to move whenever they're like that, you know? So, I mean, it comes into handy, but then people that are used to it, people that have experienced it more, they're like, oh, they just kind of brush it off, just grab the belt and just throw my ass out, you know, but.
So you said that you just started doing sumo yourself. How long have you been doing it? And do you plan on starting a Kansas sumo club?
So, short answer to that second part is that's the dream, and it's working pretty well. Because what I have found about men in their middle to late 20s, such as myself, is that if you say, hey, you want to come try sumo? Most of them are like, fuck it, why not? And that's all it takes. And then they do it once and they're hooked. My friend Malik, we got him in a belt for the first time, and he was like, he got the itch, he got the fever. The next day, he was like, I am sore as hell, but I got to get back in and do this again. And he did. We're filming all the matches. So that we can look at them and study them. And my plan is to try and move things into the realm of something more official, like a club where we can advertise only after we stop looking embarrassingly bad. And we're getting there slowly, but like if I'm still too nervous to send a clip to John Jacks, who is the man who I consulted on, like, hey, how do I build my dojo? What do I need to know about this shit? Like, I went through him for all my stuff.
Oh, hell yeah.
If I still can't send him something without feeling a slight amount of shame, that I'm not putting it out there yet. We'll be good when we debut. We've only been doing it since December, which is an insane thing if you've lived in Kansas, because, you know, it's cold as shit here.
Yeah.
We were doing sumo. Most of the times we've done sumo so far, it's been like 35 degrees. Oh, it's horrible. I'm keeping a record. Every time we do practice matches, I tally them into an Excel spreadsheet to try and see who's winning, mostly because me and my brother are competitive.
Oh, nice.
And then to try and determine what Kimarite was used, if possible. Some of them are just whack as shit because, you know, we're amateurs, and it's not amateurs in the sense of like, we're amateurs in the sense of like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
You're noobs.
Noobs, huge noobs. And but yeah, so it was going great, and then I did something to my arm and it hurt like crazy, and I had no strength in it for a while. And I don't go to the doctor because the last time I did, they talked to me for 5 minutes, told me what I already knew, and charged me $200. So I do, however,
story of my life.
I do, however, run into people I know who are or were doctors in public places sometimes, and that's when I get my medical advice. My friend's dad, who is a retired doctor, at an art show last weekend, and I was like, hey, real quick in the middle of this gallery, do you want to take a look at this arm? And he was like, yeah, do this, do this, do that. Okay, it's probably this. Don't do sumo for 6 months. And I was like, I can't give you 6 months. You know how much
you
money
can only do that for certain things, though, because if it's like, hey, check out this boil on my ass in the middle of the art gallery, that's not really going to work out.
My reputation in this town, I don't think those people would have been surprised. It's like, what the fuck is going on? It's Noah. He's just...
Nice. I love that. I love that you have a reputation in a Kansan town.
For better or worse.
I used to live in Arc City for it was 1996 that I lived there. It was just for like a year and a half. But no, I mean, I got to experience Kansas. It was an experience.
We have our ups and our downs. And actually, not literally. It's all flat. There's no ups.
Yeah. So have you thought of names for your club when you do finally debut? Any thoughts on that yet? Some.
I feel like whatever I say is going to sound cheesy, but you know, you just kind of have to like, if you get behind it, it'll. I think maybe something like Himawari Sumo Bea, which would be sunflower. I think that's the Japanese word.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
That's like, that's fitting.
It sounds good, as a word. I don't know. I like I think about the quality of sounds of words a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that sounds nice. It sounds like it could potentially be a legitimate thing.
That does sound really cool, though, and it kind of does just roll off the tongue. What was it, like Himawari? Himawari, yeah.
Himawari. And now that I say it, I get nervous that I have that word wrong, and I've just said like some like pork dish. So
oh no,
I'm going to Google that to make 100. Yeah, okay, I'm right. Anyway.
Oh shit!
You got to say it the way that the Google Translate robot says it. Okay. Himawari.
We got Oscar Dolan from New York Sumo Club.
Oh yeah, he speaks Japanese.
Yeah, he will. He has not only corrected me, but he will make fun of how I say some stuff. Like I know I have a bad like Okie Texas accent. It's just terrible. But he's because we were talking about the Aki Basho, and he spelled it like the Ockey. Oh, the Aki Basho. And I'm like, yes.
I mean, we could make it worse. We could be like, all right,
yeah, man,
watching Terry No Fuji. He's whipping ass, man. I just love that motherfucker. He's amazing.
I tell you what, man, that Hokuto Fuji, man, he just but you like.
Or like when we very first started watching sumo, instead of Tochin Ocean, we called him Token Ocean, like like token on a joint or something in the middle of the ocean. Yeah, and I've heard other people call him that since then too.
I have wanted to, and I've talked to Scott about it. If I could put it out through World of Sumo, just because he actually has a platform. I don't make any like content along those lines really, but I've talked to Scott about maybe doing a short video that teaches Japanese pronunciation through Shikona. So Rikishi names.
Yeah, we've been wanting to do a sumo terms definition episode for a while, and it was my idea to turn it into a game show where we compete against one another. And that's something we've kind of had to put on the back burner just because, I've had a lot of like health issues lately. We've had other stuff going on, but we need to start working on that again.
Yeah,
damn it, because that's going to be fun.
That would be fun.
My dream is to like do it maybe like every so often, and then just like get like random people from the sumo world to compete against each other.
I want to get Sumo Kaboom on
to
compete against us.
I love them so much.
And they're actually the reason I wanted to make the video in the first place. And it's part of their charm that they butcher so many different, pronunciations.
It's like that. It's like us too. We do too.
Their energy, it's such a different energy than from most of the sumo podcasts because they take the piss out of everything.
Yes.
Everything's lighthearted. They do it because they love it. And there's that like sexual undertone about
they're like the sumo vodka ants of like
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And
I love that about them. They did what was it? No, it was Lori. Lori did a commentary at the Cowboy Cup whenever we had that tournament, like on the live stream, and she was there with Bruce from Tachi blog, and it was hilarious because she just kind of looks up, she goes, I want to talk about men's butts.
Yes, and Bruce was like sitting there like,
I'm not a subject matter expert.
It was so funny though.
That's great. I just love them so much. They're just so fucking fantastic. They're the reason that I wanted to do like sumo podcasting, just because they're so damn inspiring.
Yeah, no, they're just awesome, and they're sweet ladies too. They live in the same area that we do. We run into them all the time at different events and stuff.
Yeah, Texas people have such a, I mean, it's not quite a monopoly, but it feels that way. All the amateur clubs I think I follow from America on social media are from Texas. At least I guess 2 of the big major sumo podcasts are from Texas. And I mean, I know they've got this and that over here and there, but like Texas is where it's at. And it's not, I always think Texas isn't that far from Kansas. And then I remember like you can drive a whole Kansas through Texas and you're still like halfway through Texas. I'm like, fucking A.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned John Jacks earlier and, you know, getting his input on what you've been doing with your sumo. I did want to mention another person that's kind of in the area over in Colorado, actually, is Kyle Ferreter, known as the Sumo Nomad. So he actually likes to travel for his sumo. I mean, maybe if you get talking to him, he'll come out and show you some stuff. He's actually really fucking good.
Oh, yeah. He's brutal.
But of course, you could come down to Texas, too, and hang out with Dallas Sumo Club and, Shogeki and Houston, Dark Circle, Mighty Eagle. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Would be super fun.
So, Robert Foymayono and Brandon Alexander live in Casimo.
Yes, Kansas City. Wasn't Robert Fumayono, he was on the Team USA for the World Games. Yeah. Dude, definitely reach out to him because I'm sure
Samoan
he can give
bulldozer.
you some pointers.
Okay, I can spell Robert. I'll give you that.
What is he on the social medias?
Oh, the Samoan bulldozer.
Samoan bulldozer, yes.
And then Brandon Alexander is Quake Viking.
That guy's cool.
Oh, yeah, that guy's awesome.
They're both cool.
They're really fucking cool.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. I get up to Kansas City pretty often. I got a lot of family and friends up there.
Nice.
And could totally road trip with my brother. That's way easier to justify than trying to trek across fucking Texas.
Not that you shouldn't still come to Texas.
I know. I'm sure at this point, like, the trajectory of my life is leading me there for at least a visit. And I know my brother is already kind of like itching to, because my he's sort of turned into a big gym junkie. And neither one of our builds are super like traditional sumo. I mean, I'd say 6 feet tall and probably like 185, and it's like all muscle. And I'm 6'3" and like 210, and it's not all muscle. So we're just kind of a different approach, and we mostly end up fighting each other. We've got a few guys on rotation, but they're far less consistently able to do it than him and me. So he just wants more practice with more opponents, and he wants to fight people with different styles, and he's developing his own style. The thing is, he's not a huge sumo fan. Like, he's doing this because I was like, Max, you like physical exercise, you like competitiveness, you like fighting me, and you have since we were children. So why don't we do this in a form that I think would be fun as fuck? And of course it is. He loves it. Yeah. But he's like asking me, like, oh, give me some Rikishi to study that I think I could learn from. And the thing is, when you only know so many names in sumo, one of the names you know is Chiyono Fuji. When you only know so many lightweight Rikishi, you want yourself to be Chiyono Fuji. And what I want Max to understand is not that he couldn't theoretically one day fight like Chiyono Fuji, but that Chiyono Fuji is such an anomalous figure in sumo for so many reasons that I think he should start somewhere that is more in line with his actual strength level, because he's not fucking throwing a Mito Izumi-sized man around the ring. He can't do that. He's having a hard time moving me just because I'm tall and I watch a lot of Wajima. And I'm telling him to watch a lot of Wajima, to watch a lot of Wakashimazu, Mutsu Arashi, Masuiyama, these dudes from 70s and 80s that did not weigh anything because it was really common back then, but had so much technique. Since I became a fan of sumo, I've been trying to analyze, like, what is it that in the era that Hakuho really shined made him so excellent? And I think it's because Hakuho combined a really, really big comparative, like a really modern sumo frame. He's not overweight, he's extremely like well proportioned, but he's like 6'4". He's one of the tallest guys in the top division, a solid and consistent like 350 pounds, hugely strong, and yet he fights kind of like he were like a Wakanohana III. Like, he can use the legs and the technique and all that crazy, just like, he's studied it so much that when you combine the way that literally everybody fought in the 70s with a 2000 size dude, and you get somebody who is just like kind of at another level than all the people that were around him. That's what I think it was. Maybe that's an oversimplification. I don't know. But I don't know how I got sidetracked.
You're good.
I want my brother to focus on people who did more with less instead of people who did the most with a lot, which Chiyono Fuji may have been lightweight, but he was inconceivably strong, inconceivably fast. I mean, he was a holdover from that 70s shit, because people forget he was older. So he had all that tiny, like, tiny frame, lots of technique, got to know what I'm doing to be able to win, period, into the 70s until he finally bulked up and then became just a monster in the 80s. And I want my brother to dial it back. But, we'll see. He's doing well.
There are Rikishi in Makuuchi now that you could even point to. Like, Midori Fuji is one of my favorites as far as the lightweight. Of course, everybody loves Inho, but he's been back down in Juryo for a while. And that's not a bad example either. I mean, most people don't even make it to Juryo. So, what do you think?
Oh, man. And back whenever he was around, old Ishiura, and I don't know what the hell.
Ishiura, yeah.
I don't know what the hell's going on with Terutsuyoshi, but like even in his like, he used to be a lot meaner and just kind of like he would hinka and just fucking, he was a little bit underhanded, but like he was strong and he was winning, but I don't know what his deal is now, but yeah, Ishiura for sure. Like he was, a smaller dude, a muscly dude. Shit, even Koto Ueko, he's not like the highest, know, but still he's strong and he will muscle the fuck out of somebody.
Yeah, Koto Ueko.
Koto Ueko isn't super tricksy. I think there's sort of a few broad categories you could put Rikishi in. And there are like, there are the tricksters. There are the people who kind of fight like a tree, like Ichi no Jo. Yeah. There are the strongmen, like Asanoyama Takarafuji was, Terunofuji. But I feel like Koto Ueko he just is like a really kind of a fundamentals guy. I mean, he wants to get on you and he wants to drive with his legs and like Gaburi Yori you out, which there's a history of that at Sarugatake stable, which is Koto Shogiku stable, who's like the poster child these days. But back in the 80s, there was Koto Kaze, who's one of my favorites from the 80s, who was like Koto Shogiku, but with even stronger legs and I think a little more height on him. I'm not sure about that, but he certainly looks that way. And I did the numbers on this a while back. I looked at when everybody was bitching about the Ozeki standard of like 10 wins per tournament.
Oh, yeah.
I went back and I looked at all the Ozeki who never made Yokozuna going back until 1970. And I wanted to see how often any of them actually met the Ozeki standard. And I made a spreadsheet. But Koto Kaze was the most consistent Ozeki who never made Yokozuna by that metric, with a Ozeki standard rate of 59.10%. So 59.10% of the tournaments he was an Ozeki, he got 10 or more wins, more than half the time. The vast majority did not do even half the time. I think the average was, 31%.
Oh, shit.
On average,
Ozeki, I feel like I've seen these
1970.
statistics before. Did you ever put this online?
Oh, yeah. It was doing the rounds.
Okay, yeah. I have seen that before. So you were the one that made that.
She was very indignant one day at lunch, because like we work from home. So at lunch, she was like, "Did you see that statistic? That was," and she like,
well, because everybody was always picking on my goth boyfriend Shodai for his.
Well, you're not going to like this because since Shodai and Mitakeumi have both closed the book on their Ozeki careers, Mitakeumi is sitting well under average at 25% of the time. So in his four tournaments at Ozeki, he got double digits once. Shodai had 13 at Ozeki and he got double digits twice. So that's 15.38%, which puts him not in the lowest echelon. There are people who never got double digits at Ozeki.
All I need to hear is he's not the worst. That's all I need to hear.
The worst actually is arguably the least successful Ozeki of the last 50 years. I think it's kind of a tie between Masuiyama, who was a super lightweight like guy who loved to trip, super fun matches to watch, but he made Ozeki kind of later on, and then it just didn't last. He was only Ozeki for 7 tournaments. And then the other probably least successful Ozeki, and people are going to fucking flame me for this, Tochinoshin.
Because he got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how it went. He was Ozeki for 7 tournaments. He got double digits in none of them. He got Makekushi 5 times. And like, it wasn't his fault. I mean, it got exacerbated. But people, Tochinoshin fans are real ride or dies, and they talk about him like, oh, he could have been a Yokozuna. And like, the numbers just do not support that notion at all.
Yeah, everybody.
I love Uncle Toch, but
what he did was
loves
amazing.
Toch, but
that he wasn't going there.
Well, one of the big reasons we did want to have you on is specifically for your sumo art. So I think we should definitely talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so like your little what do you call it? Your digital dudes?
Digital dudes.
Yeah, I was calling them. I was like, are they chibi rikishi? Are they digital dudes? It's just kind of what came out. So
I'll take it. I've seen people challenge people. Some people are like chibi purists. Like something is not a chibi unless it is like a very specific style of big-headed whatever. Like a cartoon to people is not a chibi. I don't know. I don't give a shit. And this is someone who ran a DeviantArt account for like 7 years as a middle schooler through high schooler that exclusively drew chibis of characters from Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, etc. And it was like kind of popular. It's still up. But if you search like certain key characters from one of those shows plus chibi on Google Images, some of my old middle school artwork is among the first results.
Oh, shit. Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
on the internet.
I was on DeviantArt a long time ago.
I think I still have a Deviant.
That place is just such a cesspit that I just had to give it up.
You know what's okay? I'm gonna let you guys in on a secret. That I think I took them all down. I can't remember, but I started a DeviantArt to put up my like little because I did like adult coloring. I would get black and white pictures and I would use MS Paint at work to like color them like pixel by pixel.
I've seen you do this.
Yeah, and so I was gonna take all of my like little pixel Crayola drawings, you know, and just put them on my DeviantArt. But look, I color at work, and then like I was like, I should probably take these down before someone just like rips me apart for coloring with MS Paint. I still have them though, but I wouldn't just color. I would take like I had like these screenshots of like an NES emulator, so I would take like the sprites and like use MS Paint to clean up around them, and then like put them in just like weird situations, or like I don't know, get pictures off the internet, and there's like Samus and Mega Man, you know, just.
I would just draw pictures of people's Dungeons and Dragons characters and put them on there.
I still do that.
Hell yeah!
Fuck yeah, dude!
I was doing that literally right before this call started. Here.
Really?
Oh, hell yeah, dude! You are our people.
Oh my god!
Thank you. I'm playing a campaign with my family, and my character, his name is Pagliacci, but it's spelled Pawg, all caps, which is sort of a foul acronym. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
He's a clown, but there's sort of we're essentially entering season 2 right now. So there's been a time skip. The last major arc wrapped up. The next session, which should be on Sunday, will be the start of season 2. And I thought it would be funny because I'm just fucking around with D&D rules, and my dad mostly lets it slide. So I'm like, his race is clown. He's not a human. He was a human. He was turned into a clown. And what that means is very like, it's a developing concept. So I'm going to have him molt out of his old like look at the beginning of season 2, just like crack out of his own back.
Oh my god.
And so I've made a redesign, and I'll show you the first one. This probably doesn't really go great for an audio medium, but you know, it is what it is. So this is what Pagliacci originally looked like. You could see him on my Instagram. He's a clown. He's a colorful clown. He's got a gun.
Yeah.
It's cool. But he got a magical knife. This is so not what people listen to the show for. He got a magical knife at the end of the last season that like is like fire imbued, and it makes you go a little crazy the longer you hold it. And so we left off with my character just like looking at this knife like Smeagol, like you know?
Oh no.
So we're gonna come back, and he's like fully fire type now. Total redesign.
Oh, that's badass.
Wow.
Round as hell. So I'm
Oh man, throw a Mawashi on that guy, dude.
If I could dress like that, I would.
As far as the name, like, I mean, don't even worry about that, because I think the last D&D character I had, his name was Pingus Balls Deep.
We are meant to be friends.
Yeah. He was a Zeph Scion thrall herd or something, and he was like really gay. And I mean, this was a long time ago, so it was probably very problematic. No, anyway, enough about our stupid nerdy stuff. We don't have to.
I was about to say, what version are you playing? Are you playing 5th edition or
3.5?
No, of course we were playing 3.5. It's the best edition. I mean, besides
I only ever played 2nd edition and then
Pathfinder. Yeah.
Oh, I played Pathfinder. Yeah, we had a good campaign.
Anyway, I wonder what the Venn diagram is of like sumo enthusiast and like fucking tabletop gaming nerds.
I was about to say is like
in the U.S. it's probably just a circle.
There are a lot. Yeah. Like most everybody that I've interviewed so far, or that we've interviewed so far, I've been like some sort of tabletop gamer, some sort of gamer, like in some way or fashion.
And they've all been weebs.
Yeah.
Yeah, well. Sure.
There's a little bit of weeb in every American sumo wrestler. Except for the ones like, I mean, there are some that are like purely just like, I wouldn't say like a jock, but you know, like they're in it for like the sport, as like they were introduced to the sport without anything really kind of as an intermediary.
It is kind of a sport that nerds can do.
Yeah,
you know,
it is definitely.
In the U.S., I think it does have a greater appeal to people, I guess, who are more outsider types of personalities, more on the fringes. Not your typical like MMA jock guy, but
I think in a weird way, I mean, you would think it would be the polar opposite of this because it is like the one sport that requires you to be almost entirely naked. But I think it is kind of a sport it has an appeal to introverts because it's number one, it's very, I mean, it's obviously, it's not a team sport. You work, by yourself, you compete by yourself, but also it doesn't have, in fact, it frowns upon all that bravado and all of that, like showmanship that goes into so many American sports. I don't follow any other any American sports. I don't follow any other sports at all. And a lot of it is because just like the culture I don't jive with. This is not a criticism, it isn't me, like that kind of like, fuck yeah, we hate those bastards. Like the enemy team is the worst. So sumo is great because, you win, you keep a stone cold face, you walk to the other side of the ring, you bow, and that's it. I mean, ideally. And that's one of the many, many, many.
Every once in a while, you do a backflip in front of the whole world, but
over here, apparently, well, that wasn't even here. That wasn't that an Egyptian? Is that what happened?
Yeah, but it was in Alabama.
Oh,
that's where they had the World Games. Yeah.
Well, if you go to Alabama, you should expect a fucking bucket. It's in the water over there, people.
Roll Tide.
Yeah. No, but I know what you're talking about. There is that kind of like overly competitive bravado where it kind of consumes people's whole identities sometimes, and that can be definitely a turnoff. And that's part of the reason why I'm so into sumo as well, is because it is just, especially when you get into like the amateur sumo scene, everybody's just so fucking nice and polite and like always just helping each other out, Yes, it's because they want their opponents to be better at sumo so that they can then fight them and get better themselves. But and everybody just is so fucking rad, I mean,
that's what I was just, it's like you meet these people like Kyle Farrader, she was talking about earlier. Like Kyle will seriously like coach you on how to, is like, no, you get more power if you tachi like this. He's like, oh, you need to protect your neck, so make sure you do neck exercises like this. And
because he reached out to you out of nowhere and was like, hey, here's some pointers, right?
Yeah, he was just like, yeah, dude, protect your neck.
I end up doing a head tachi at least like twice per session, and without fail, I have a sore neck for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
And the head tachi is awesome. Like, I mean, I don't think my brother's like ready for it. Especially, he doesn't expect it because I'm a lot taller than him. And so to get in that low and stay like, and then you can drive with your head, which is great. Mm-hmm. But I can't do it without fucking up my neck. And I'd love to know how to not fuck up my neck. Because then I'm driving and I'm like, I gotta check my blind spot. Oh. It hurts.
You have to make sure that you hit with both your head and both of your hands at the same time.
And it's like you got to hit with like your hairline, like make sure your hairline is here. Like hits the xiphoid process.
Yeah.
And then like you start like low, and then and then you like go diagonally like up, like into up, them, and then like hands on the like you want to cup the nipples, and then like forehead, the xiphoid or the hairline in the xiphoid process, and just like push up.
It is more complicated than it looks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always is.
But anyway, back to the art. and not the D&D art, the sumo art. But how did you first get into how did you first get into art? I mean, what makes someone an artist who lives in the middle of Kansas?
You do it as a kid, and your parents tell you you're good at it. And then you go to see Lord of the Rings when you're 5, and you want to live there, but you can't like afford the toys because you don't have any money, and neither do your folks. And so you just make your own toys by drawing the characters, and you do that all the time forever, which makes you a little better at it, like better than your friends. And then your friends tell you you're good at it, which makes you want to do it more. And so you just do it more forever, and then you get good. That's what it's about. And as an art teacher, I can say this, like my input is going to give people, it gives kids the experience of all these different types of things. And yes, they do learn here and there, but ultimately the kids who are going to go on to become really ahead of the curve by high school are the ones who want to keep doing it when they go home. So kind of my goal is to see if I can't get kids to want to keep doing it when they go home, because that's the only reason it was all I did. I mean, my brother is older than me. He would we would play video games together, but if it was single player, he would hog that shit. So he was taking up that. We didn't have that many TVs in the house, you know? And so like you find other things to do. And yes, we could go outside and put rocks on the railroad tracks and wait for the train to go by and crush it into dust. But other than that, I would take old recycled pieces of paper that my dad, like they had like debate cards because he was a debate coach and shit on them on the back, and then we would flip them over and I'd draw on the other side. I still have shitty drawings of like Bilbo Baggins from when I was 6 years old on the backs of debate cards, like weird articles about abortion and stuff. It's just, these are my artifacts. And so yeah, it's the only thing it's the thing in the world I most like to do, and it always has been, is drawing specifically, but then art more broadly. Technically I'm a painter because I think that was my emphasis in college, but I haven't made a oil painting since I started teaching because it's a slog.
I think I saw, didn't you do like a Takakeisho kind of caricature painting?
Yes, but that's a digital painting, which is much less.
That looks like an oil painting kind of.
Well, that's the point. It's still people. I got some shit for one of my digital portraits by an old lady on Facebook because she thought that digital art meant. What's weird is this was before the AI art thing really took off, which is, cool, by the way, if you're listening and you like AI art, boo. But this was before that took off, and yet that was sort of what her conception was. She thought that I just took a picture of Takakeisho and ran it through a filter and it turned it into a thing. Like, no, you take an iPad and you take a stylus that looks like a pencil, and you draw it with a tool that looks like a pencil, and then you put all the colors where they need to be, and then you render the shit out of them slowly. Exactly the same process in essence as what you would do with physical media. It's just, it is the added layer of convenience of being on a screen. So you don't have to mix colors, and you can zoom in and work on smaller areas at a time, which makes it less of a slog. But, you know, if you don't know how to, I know a lot of talented artists. I don't know a lot of people personally who I think could make that Takakeisho portrait with an iPad. Like, it still requires a lot of fundamental ability and understanding of painting processes specifically to be able to do something like that, which is something a lot of people just don't understand about digital art. Digital art is legit. I fought it for a long time just because when I grew up, the only tablets that were accessible, and you guys probably know this very well, were like the Wacom ones.
The Wacom tablets.
Here, and you have to look at the computer. So you're drawing down here. I hate those things. It was such a disorienting thing. The one time I got to try it at like a friend's house as a kid, and I was like, this is awful. I'm going to just keep drawing on paper forever. And I did for a really, really long time. And then when I was 23, maybe, it was a few years ago, my parents were very kind. They saw that I had been using my friend Maddie's tablet to make cartoons, which I was starting to sell at Comic Cons, and they got me an iPad for my birthday, and they had it inscribed in the back. It says, eternally grateful to my parents, because they're pieces of shit, but I love them. I do love them, and I thank them for this. It's definitely paid for itself. And so I've been kind of on a digital thing more since I started teaching, because here's the thing. I can't start a painting, like a real painting, and then walk away from it until it is at a stage where it, at least, like if someone broke into my house, okay, like home invasion, armed robbery, and they happen to walk through my little office and see the painting, if they saw it and went, oh, what the fuck is he? What is that? That would be the worst thing possible. So I have to like spend 6 hours on it to make sure that if that armed robber does come in and he walks by the painting, he goes, nice.
All right, shit.
And then he shoots me in the head, and he's still.
And then the value of the painting instantly increases by sixfold. And,
But the thing is, to get it to that stage, it takes like 6 hours. And when you get off work at 4 o'clock, and then you cook dinner, and you need to be asleep by 10, or else you're gonna feel like a zombie the next day because them kids are gonna eat you alive. I don't want to spend my entire evening working on a painting ever. And I mean, and some people do because they love painting, and I am good at painting, so people think I should love painting. I don't really love painting that much. It's okay, and I like being done with a painting. I like having a painting that I made. I don't like making a painting. I don't like painting. This sucks. Like, it's not for me. Drawing is easy. Drawing is relaxing. You can turn your brain off. It's fun.
I definitely draw way more than I paint. Yes. Oh, yeah. I completely get it. Yes.
And drawing on an iPad, well, I don't love starting a drawing on an iPad because it still feels weird. Like, it's kind of like having having a couple fingers tied behind my back or something. Like, it's just, but still, after the drawing part is done, nothing is better than coloring on an iPad. You just drop colors in, shading on an iPad, you put on clipping masks so the shading only goes on the color that you want it to go on, things like that. And it's awesome. Like, I can crank out cartoons left and right, which is just all I've been doing lately. I feel like I'm at a stage where I did all my serious shit. I did all my hard work, and now I'm an old chunk of coal, and I just wanna make stuff that makes me laugh. When I drew that D&D character, that round ass D&D, I did this yesterday at parent-teacher conferences because nobody comes to parent teacher, but they make you sit there for 12 hours. And as soon as I finished it, I looked at it and I just bust out laughing. Amazing. I have done it again. Like, I've just, I'm finally starting to get to a point where I can make stuff that I'm like, this is a good addition to the world. Like, I did a Takakei a while back, a tiny Takakei cartoon where he's at the Tachi-ai and it says Tachi-ai. You can buy it on a shirt, by the way, people. Redbubble, they take all my money. I get about like.
We have a Redbubble shop too. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Totally passive income, and it means that my art is getting its way out to people all around the world, which is cool. So I leave it up, and I do like it. I mean, it's like, oh, you sold something to Germany today. I'm like, cool. Samba Nova in Germany has fun of my t-shirt.
Nice. Oh my God. So you teach art to elementary school kids. Do they know about your passion for sumo?
I have a picture of Musashi Maru on my desk.
Hell yes.
I don't have a wife and kids. And somebody gave me a picture frame at the beginning of the year, like, here's for your wife and kids. I'm like, I don't have a wife and kids, Carrie. And so I just put Musashi Maru in it. I printed out this picture of him smiling, and he's not like nude. It's just his head, and he's got a kimono on, and he's smiling. He looks awesome. The number one question I get from kids is, the first one is that your dad? Which is hilarious, because if anyone, now you have to do video, because if they can see me, and no one knows, Musashi Maru is not my dad. I wish he was, but he's not. And then the other one is just, oh, do you know that guy? And I'm like, no, I don't know that guy, but he's awesome. Let me tell you about him.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your dad. All right, so I did have a couple of questions related to with your art, because I did see like some like superheroes and like some manga characters, like I saw like Deku and stuff, And
speaking of subjects other than sumo that involve, drawing pictures of ridiculous characters.
So do you read manga? Do you read comics? Is that like, something that you're all about?
Yeah. I grew up reading manga, but only like a couple. And this was back in the day where you had to go to like seedy websites to read manga. And I crashed at least one laptop of my parents with viruses because I would go to like Manga Panda or Manga Stream. These are all the websites now. And they would just, they'd eat you alive. And I was, a teenager. All I want to do was read Naruto every week and Bleach. And that was what I did. And so I've done that forever. Started watching the shows as a kid, whatever was on. Probably Dragon Ball Z was the first one I ever saw because it was on a long time ago at this point. And I got into American comics like weirdly after I got into Japanese cartoons and comic books. I mean, everybody grows up familiar with this and that, and like everybody likes Batman the Animated Series if you're our age.
Yeah.
Well, hell yeah.
But I didn't like read American comics until I was in college, and it was just because I don't know. So as somebody who as a teenager spent most of their time doing fan art, for me, like the fan art had to look exactly like the style. And I think that's because I read so much manga, and manga is written by a single manga story is written by one artist. And that artist usually also draws for the story. And so it is the same all the time because they're the only person interpreting that character. It's their characters. American comic books are not that way at all. But because I grew up reading manga, I was like really obsessed with the idea that if I'm going to draw fan art, it has to look exactly like the way the characters are drawn because that's how they're supposed to look. And I guess I got kind of tired of that. And so I was still in like a fan arty mode, but I didn't want to keep constraining myself to that idea because it was stressful and you could always find something to nitpick at. So I got into American comics where every different issue was written by or drawn by somebody else, and started finding out that there were some really amazing artists that worked in American comics that I could definitely learn a lot from. I just took off from there, mostly Marvel. And I would buy the book based on the artist more than by the author. So like how up to date I am on any particular series just depends on how long they kept the artist I liked. Because once they move out of that, I'm like, comic books are so expensive. And there are so many you could be keeping up with that if it's not something I want to be able to go back and look at later, because that's really why I do it, is to look at the pictures. I mean, that's art. Then I'm not going to follow it. So I have my favorite American comic artists for sure. And I do those cartoons to sell at comic conventions. That I was on this shit since I was a kid, where I realized there was something about having a ton of copies of what is essentially the same drawing, but like reskinned, right? So this has become hot shit these days with like pop vinyls, or in Japan with like Nendroids, which have been around for a while. But I was doing this from the time I was, in like Catholic grade school, so like third grade, with Naruto chibis. Even before the DeviantArt, I have some of these older, like first gen ones where I would trace over the previous one that I drew so that the new one would be the exact same size and proportion, and they would look essentially identical. They would just have the other characters like design. And I would make tons of them just because I felt like I was collecting something. Again, when you don't have any money to actually collect something, you make your own collection. And I carried that in through the DeviantArt, where if I were to send you that, you'd see exactly what I mean, because all those chibis, again, they're the same proportion, they're all the same pose, but they're the different characters. And then into these cartoons now, which is like, well, I've been liberated by American comic books. I can draw this shit in whatever style I want to. Let's figure out what I want that to be. And that's an ongoing process. Like my cartoons that I've been drawing lately have been a lot more. They've clearly separated themselves from what you'll see, those ones with like the solid color background that are all the same face and all the same sort of stance and size. Yeah. Those are made for Comic Cons, which I go to on occasion. Not so much anymore. There was like a peak for me where I was doing several a year. But again, I'm just too busy. So now I do like 1 or 2 a year. But I go and they always sell what, like, people, they just see it and they go, oh, that's adorable. I've not quite seen that style before. And they're all the same, so I want to get 4 or I want to get 5. Or I was here last year and I got a few, and now I got to get a few more to add to the wall. Just because it feeds into that pop vinyl mentality, whatever it is, that makes people want to get them. And you can tell...
Pokemon, gotta catch them all.
Literally. And you can tell that I've dialed back a lot, because if you go back and you see like the last couple years, all of my new cartoons in those series are uploaded within the period of about 2 weeks before the one con I do in the summer. So I won't do any all year long. And then 2 weeks before the con, I'll do like 30. And then it'll be 30 new ones, just because I know I need new characters to sell. And it's not that I don't still enjoy it, but like there was definitely a point where I was doing it because it was fun and funny to me. It's like castration is what it is. You take this super serious character like the Incredible Hulk, and then you make him look so impotent and soft and stupid. And that's the appeal, I think, of that style. But even I am a little bit burnt out on it. It's not to say I won't do more. It's just I now pretty much only do them when I've got a money-making opportunity coming up, or if I'm just really like vibing on a character from something and I want to see them in that way. But no,
So you said that you collect comic books based on like your favorite artists, rather than just the titles themselves. So who would be like a few of your favorite like American comic artists?
My number one favorite American comic artist is a guy named Esad Ribic. He is a Croatian artist. He's kind of like a disciple of Frank Frazetta, who maybe the badass like Viking shit. But obviously he does it within the context of pretty much exclusively Marvel comics. I have always admired people who have a strong knack for drawing, like with a level of realism, however, with no photo reference. People who can just sit down and illustrate, and it's anatomically correct. The poses are dynamic and they're interesting, and they're not looking at any pictures. They just know. They just have such a strong memory bank of how things look from every which way. The master of this is an artist who died last year. He was a Korean guy named Kim Jung-gi. And he worked in comics here and there, but he just sort of branched off into such a big personal brand that he didn't have to do a lot of that work anymore. And he was just renowned, like internationally renowned, for being able to draw the craziest, like 5-point perspective, like whack as hell, extremely involved, hyper detailed pen illustrations with pen from the jump. Just ink, no takesies, backsies. Every line is exactly what I wanted it to be, and it turns out perfect. To me, that's like the ultimate artistic superpower.
Yeah.
And I do drawings like that on occasion, where that is what I'm trying to do. There are some of them on my Instagram. If you ever see something that's like line art only, and it's serious and it's surrealist, that is along those lines, where I'm just trying to make it so that every line I make from the beginning is the right one, and kind of practicing my chops. I think those are the most impressive of the things that I do, which people maybe who don't know a lot about art wouldn't assume. They would see the charcoal portraits and they would go, oh, he's drawing from a photo. But I know lots of people who could draw from photos. I don't know as many people who can work with the figure and work with things off the top of their head in the way that I do, and as well as I do. And I sound like I'm bragging, but fuck it.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, I love Esad Ribic. I like Leonel Yu a lot. I like Jerome Pena. I like, what's his name? Chung. Cheung. Why can't I think of his first name? He was one of the first ones that I picked up because I liked the way he drew Thanos a lot.
Nice.
I like John Byrne, some classics. Alex Ross is sort of a god, but he doesn't really do books much anymore, though he did a Fantastic Four book recently, which was great because they're my fave. And I've got a lot. What's that guy? Rafa Sandoval, who works for DC. Any book he does, I will check out. And he's always jumping between stories. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm reading issue number 347 of Green Lantern today, because whatever.
Okay, so who are some of your favorite manga artists? Mangaka. Yes, that's the word.
As far as artists go, I don't think anyone's ever had a cooler style he's made to look so effortless as Tite Kubo, who's the artist for Bleach. Bleach has suffered because it's anime. The people who do the anime have never been able to draw half as well as the manga. So anytime they do anything that is like off script or isn't directly based on a panel, it looks far shittier than the way that the manga did. And so a lot of people's opinions of Bleach, I think, are tainted. The manga is gorgeous. It kind of has a bad rep because it ended really terribly, but the art is like its own. I have a high appreciation for that, and there's a fair amount of influence in terms of like what I think is aesthetically cool comes from Bleach. There is the guy who did Death Note. So Death Note has an artist and an author, and they've actually worked together on a couple things. The artist who did Death Note is extremely talented. I mean, just really good at, again, drawing with a degree of realism that kind of boggles the mind. There's an artist named Haruhisa Nakata who did a book that I just saw in a bookstore and I picked up. It's called Levius, and I was like, this is incredibly well drawn. So I bought it and I ended up reading the whole story. It's a pretty good story, but the art is like crazy good. It's like French realism inspired and amazing. The guy who does the One Punch Man comic is kind of a god, but like stylistically, he's not my favorite. You can tell he's extremely talented. It's just like, it's not my fave to look at, which happens with a lot of things. Man, there's a lot. Like obviously the dude who does My Hero Academia, Horikoshi, that dude is crazy. He's so crazy. I had to stop reading because I was like getting discouraged. I was like, I was just thought, I was like, I put my book down. I was like, I can never do this shit. And if I keep reading this, it's going to make me feel like I can never make a manga. And I'm trying to make a manga right now.
Oh, hell yes.
I don't need that. I'm making a manga. I have been off and on since high school, but it faded. And then when we all moved back to the same town, it's written by two of my dear friends, Malik and Samaje, who went to college in Arc City, Kansas, by the way.
Oh, shit.
And that's been an ongoing process that, again, is super hard to manage working. But what I have done, I'm very proud of. I'm trying to make it so that when we finally launch this thing, every drawing, every panel is like unclockable. That's the goal. It's a very strong goal. I don't know if I'm quite that good, but I want it to really, I want people who are fans of manga to look at this and say, damn, that looks professional. That looks Japanese. That looks incredible. Because I'm a big student of that. And I would be ashamed if, because I mean, I don't want to talk shit, but there's a lot of people that have tried to do that and have come short.
I've seen some really shitty manga, especially coming out of the US.
Yeah.
Yes, especially coming out of the US.
I think they call it doujinshi.
But then I've seen shitty, or maybe not shitty, but like manga done by people who maybe like weren't incredibly, talented artists that have also been like really good manga, and the story has been really good, and the skill that they did have they used really effectively.
I kind of felt that way about Attack on Titan.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
On the Attack on Titan manga.
People say that about Chainsaw Man too. Yeah.
The Chainsaw Man manga is like, it's very dirty and dingy. I really love how they use like gutter space. And, but like,
ooh, I have a recommendation for you then. Have you seen or heard of or read Doro Hidoro?
Yes.
Oh my God, I love it.
All the manga. They're not probably making a season 2. I think it's fair to say at this point.
Those bastards.
It actually tickles a particular fancy of mine.
I have a guess, but we won't go there.
I've talked about it on the show before, but anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's excellent. It's nitty gritty. I have the manga. The manga is it's like it's way grittier even than the anime, just because it's very scratchy. Like the work that the author does, she just is like, it's just really rough almost, but it fits the atmosphere of the story really well. It's great. If you don't get a chance, I mean, if they don't ever make a season 2, you should read the story all the way to the end, because it just gets better and better. It's awesome.
Oh,
it's really
hell
good.
Yeah.
But what was I can never remember the guy's name, the guy who did Baki and
Keisuke Itagaki.
Itagaki, yes. Are you familiar with any of that? Any stuff that he's done?
I don't think so. I've had kids ask me about it, because the kids, especially 4th graders, love anime, and I've had a couple be like, "Do you watch Baki?" I'm like, I don't. I think I know what it looks like. Very like anatomical and like edgy a little bit, like very
the manga is
kind of 80s.
Yeah, very 80s.
The style of the manga is extremely distinct. If you haven't seen it yet, I absolutely suggest taking a look at it, because it's just really unique and very, I want to say homoerotic.
Itagaki does have a thing about dicks.
Like you can tell he's like, married and has kids, but you can tell this dude loves dudes. Okay.
Well, that's the same thing with the JoJo guy. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But like the thing with Itagaki too is how much he loves like fucking like pro sumo. Like he did like a whole arc on Baki. Like that's just about sumo, and it's like he put Takayasu in there. It looks like it's fucking Takayasu. Awesome.
There are several Rikishi in there that are like modeled after. There's an Enho
Rikishi.
And cool. So if you like sumo and you like manga, definitely check out the sumo arc in Baki.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Anyway,
so like, whenever you were talking about manga and comics, I noticed that you like talking about things that are like dynamic, kind of like, like with sumo was something that's like super dynamic. So what was it that made you kind of wanted to capture these like bodies in motion in like sumo, or to, like artistically capture sumo in any form? So
a big part of why I like sumo to begin with is that I'm into things that have that are like character driven, right? I like stories that are character driven. I think it's probably why I like manga, because a lot of the times I feel like manga is sort of like 10% plot and then 90% the characters are wacky and memorable and they have cartoonish personalities. And sumo is almost like a game to see how much you can take away from a person and still find out what makes them distinct and unique. Because especially to an American audience member who does not have a lot of access to those behind the scenes moments where you get to learn more about them as people, you just see them on match day, where everything attempts to be homogenized except for the color of their belt, the shape of their body, and their style of sumo. And that's why I think that sumo really is an art form, because it is an art insofar as you are projecting yourself, like the essence of yourself, on a level that you cannot communicate through words, into what you're doing. Like at its highest levels, that is the sumo that I like. Even if it is not flashy, if I feel like it is telling us about you. That's why I'm a big Kiseno Sato fan, because he was a strict adherent to his style of sumo, and he got as far as he did in an era of like fluidity of technique. I mean, considering his top rivals and kind of, they were sort of the opposite of that. I don't want that to sound like too much of a criticism of the Mongolians, but I've asked social media before, hey, what would you say is Hakuho's brand of sumo? And the only thing that they could really tell me is winning. And that's true. Hakuho's brand of sumo was winning by whatever means necessary. You know, I didn't really get a strong sense of Hakuho's identity through his sumo in the same way that I do watching Hisenosato, watching Terao, watching Takakeisho, you know, these people who have dedicated themselves to something. And so when you look at that, you begin to sort of feel like you almost, maybe because you're searching so far to find something that you can latch onto, even if it's all made up, you sort to feel connected to these individuals. Like you project that onto them. And sometimes people do it in a negative way. Like, it's funny how much people will talk shit about how, oh, I don't like the Rikishi's attitude. And I'm like, you see them stand there with this expression on their face. And then they do their match and they either win or they lose. And they have this expression on their face. And then they leave. And that is all you get of their personality and their attitude. So I don't know what the fuck you're making up in your brain, but unless it's Asa Shoryu, every Rikishi is just deadpan all the time, you know?
That's funny, because I was just about to mention how people always think that Ho Shoryu, which is his nephew, is like, you know, just this like mean guy, and he's always like glaring at people and like mean mugging them. No, he just can't see. He's not wearing his glasses, so he has to
because he's nearsighted. Like,
and honestly, I'll admit, even I thought that for a while.
Well, he thought that he was mean, and then then he's just squinting. He doesn't have his glasses on.
I just see his uncle in him, and I'm like, oh god, it's one of the. But he's clearly like way more chill, which is probably not half as good. But so that's part of it, and then also, I really like character design. And the fun thing about Rikishi is that, again, they don't have any character design because, like, if you're looking at it from a comic book standpoint, there's this thing in comic books called same face syndrome, right? Where the comic book artists will draw every character as, like, if you shaved them bald and took off their clothes, they would look exactly the same. The only thing that would be different would be the color of their eyes and the tone of their skin, maybe. But half the time, those are just the same anyway. And so they rely entirely on the costuming to like determine which character this is. They don't have facial features, whatever. And with Rikishi, you know, you see them, they're so far away. They all have the same haircut and the same hair color. So you have belt color and then you have body type. And so it becomes this interesting exercise where I have to express a character design, but I'm not adding clothing. I'm not adding like, you know, all these knickknacks and things. I'm just like examining very closely the way that fat or muscle or both sits on this person's body and to try and express who they are. And when you take that, doing it realistically is fun, but then doing it in like a stylized cartoonish way is like, okay, did I capture the essence of their character design going on nothing? Like I've got nothing to work with, but did I still pull it off? Could you tell who this character is if I like cut their head off, you know, and still caricaturize them? Can you tell who they are? And that's what I'm constantly kind of like, that's my battle. That's my artistic battle. I
was going to say is like, I've noticed those minute details, like on just like, you know, your digital dudes, like the Chiyo no Fuji one. I knew that was Chiyo no Fuji, like on site, you know, and Koto no Waka, I was like, yep, they're all four of them are there, you know? So and I love that. I love that attention to detail. I love like how you shade to show the muscles, you know, or
thank you.
Yeah. It's badass.
And the other thing is, again, the collecting, like I'm trying to, because if you notice, I've done series where it's everyone is in the same I mean, it goes back to literally these chibis I did as a third grader. It's the exact same ethos, the same as the cartoon, the like superhero cartoons, the same as the DeviantArt chibis. I'm doing the same thing all throughout my life, just with a different subject matter. Because now you can't really get sumo merch in America, not conveniently, not quickly, not in such a way. Some people really love sumo cards, and that does seem kind of up my alley. But again, it's money, and it's all that. I just make my own thing. So I have my own little cards, my own little cartoon cards that I don't have a lot of them physically. I do have a sticker fridge where I have a bunch of my guys. I've got Keisho, Shodai, Hakuho, Koto no Waka, Asanoyama, Musashimaru, Akebono, and Grimace from McDonald's.
Oh my god, please tell me Grimace is wearing a mawashi. Uh-oh, did we freeze up?
Did we lose him? Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh no.
No!
Shit. Hold on.
Yeah, sorry about that. Our internet service provider is a huge fucking jack off.
I just thought my Grimace joke killed it so hard that the internet went out.
Oh, no way. The Grimace was
You
awesome.
know what? That's what we're going with. That is absolutely what we're going with.
Fucking love Grimace. I've got some Grimaces back there underneath the Bowies. I don't know if you can see them. And, while we're on the subject, can I pose a Grimace-related question to you two?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so fuck, marry, kill.
Oh, no.
Grimace? The original Grimace from 1970 who was evil and had 4 arms.
Whoa.
That one.
Or Uncle O'Grimacy, Grimace's Irish uncle. He comes out at Shamrock Shake time.
Definitely fuck the scary evil Grimace.
Whoa. Oh, and you said he was edgy. Okay.
I told you, certain things tickle my fancy.
Toxic.
I would probably marry the Uncle Grimace. And then what was the other one?
Regular Grimace.
Just kill regular Grimace. No, there's nothing special. Nothing special about him.
Oh, man.
What?
Well, I know what kind of person you are.
Hey, it's the 4 arms and scariness that gets her.
I've instantly been canceled on the fast food internet.
It would be like getting a hug from Goro.
It would.
Also tickles my fancy. Yes.
She's always trying to give me high ponytails. She's like, you might look like Goro.
You look like him when anyway. You know what they should do? They should throw a Mawashi on Grimace. I bet he'd
do great. I think
he'd
Grimace,
do great in the dojo. Yeah.
I think he could probably break through Upper Makushita, have a little stint in Juryo, but not enough to become an Oyakata. But I do think he'd open up a killer restaurant afterward.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, killer Chonko restaurant.
Grimace's
like
Meatland.
Chonko fast food,
That'd be great. No, that would not be great. I've made Chonko many a time, and I wouldn't want it like the things you have to do in the fast food industry to just... Have we lost the plot on this episode yet?
That just makes it more entertaining, honestly. So, I mean, I wasn't going to say anything. But we did have a few questions for you, specifically about Pro Sumo. Who are your favorite Rikishi currently?
Active Rikishi. My main man, and I make no secrets about this, is Takakeisho. And it's been Takakeisho since I started sumo. And for me, it's because Takakeisho is the Rock Lee of sumo at this time.
Yeah.
Where he has no aptitude for Yotsuzumo. And instead of like trying to get there, he's just like, fuck it, taijutsu. Like, I'm just going to push people and I'm going to be the best at it. And it's going to work for me. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, he made Ozaki at 22, which is crazy. People don't give him credit for that. It's weird. All these conversations about like, bring in the new generation, the Wakataka Kages, the Kiribayamas, And I'm like, those guys are older than Takakeisho. Like, you just think Takakeisho is one of the previous gen, but he's just been so good at such a young age that like he could be around for 10 more years. Yeah. I mean, theoretically, like he could be around longer than some of those guys. Who knows? But he doesn't get enough credit, but that's a whole thing. I like Takakeisho a lot. Koto no Waka is my man. If you want to talk about the up-and-comers, as they're called, Koto no Waka is my favorite. And part of that is because I think as awesome as Wakataka Kage can be, I get a little bit like hipstered out. I also feel like, and so I'm like, I don't want to bandwagon Wakataka Kage. And I've been a fan of his since he started just because he's had some amazing moments. Yeah. I'm not really on the Hoshoryu bandwagon like a lot of people are. I think people want him to be as good as his uncle. He's not as good as his uncle. He doesn't even fight at all like his uncle, especially not at that age. I don't know. He hasn't had that huge wow factor yet. And I'm more rooting for him out of my fondness for like history and legacy. And that is true to some extent for Koto no Waka, but Koto no Waka has had like a remarkable consistency since he kind of came back from that.
Total dark horse.
And I also like the big dudes. I feel like American fans, certainly there's a bias towards lighter weight Rikishi. I think Wakataka Kage is super popular, partially because, I mean, he's hot. And, and I get that. But also, and it is remarkable when you see a lighter weight Rikishi be successful in this day and age, just because it's not as common. But I don't think that people get the credit that maybe, like, I feel like Koto no Waka should be on everybody's. And he's getting there. He's getting on people's favorite lists. As time goes on, but I've been on that shit since he debuted in Makuuchi. I was watching at that time, and I was like, ooh, first of all, I love his belt colors, because everyone in Saruga Takebeya always has a great belt color. Like the Koto Echo, like they like pastels, and I'm
the lavender.
Yeah, it's great. But anyway, I want him to be Yokozuna, or at least I want him to be Ozeki, so he can take his grandpa's name, because his grandpa was a fucking beast. His grandpa, I've been obsessed with this thing, and if I didn't have this stupid fasciitis, I'd be beating the shit out of my brother trying to do it. But Koto Zakura, who was a Yokozuna in the 70s, he won 5 titles. He would do this thing at the Tachiai that is just, it's crazy. Like, if I ever saw someone do this these days, I would be like, that is the fucking best. Where he would, it's so fast. Right at the jump, he would secure this position where his right arm would go wrapped around yours, like underneath, but he wasn't trying to get a belt. He would basically pull his right arm like up and in so that it would lock your arm in this useless upright position, like he was trying to snap it.
Yeah.
And then his left arm would hit the throat like crazy. And he'd drive from enough of an angle that your other arm is just trying to get him the fuck off your throat, but the one arm is locked up and useless. And he would just fucking, I'm going to send you this match. It's him beating Kitano Fuji with it. And it's one of the most aggressively one-sided, just brutal. I mean, it's so good. If Kitano Fuji even said this because he's still around and he commentates. He said, he's fighting a lot like his dad, Koto Nowaka Sr. I want to see him fight more like his grandpa. And I agree, because that would be awesome. Because he's a lot bigger than his fucking grandpa.
Yeah.
And could probably generate a lot of power. But instead, he has his dad's reactive style, which makes sense because his dad is his coach and his grandpa's been dead since he was a little kid. So,
for me to really appreciate, Koto Nowaka the younger, I really did have to watch more bouts with his dad, and see kind of like, and I was like, the connection was clear once I saw like some of his dad's old bouts. I was like, oh, okay. And then I really started to appreciate, his style a lot more. But what I really like about Koto Nowaka's style is he's just mean. He's brutal. And I think he could be even brutaler. And I would like to see him become, but he's smart too. He has like a very, I wouldn't say cerebral, but he's just whip smart. He's just very reactive. That was a good way to put it.
That's his dad. And what's funny about that is you see people refer to different Rikishi as being babyface. No one looks like a 12-year-old more than Koto Nowaka. Like he looks like a big kid.
He does.
Even after all this time in the top division, getting the shit slapped out of him, because people love to bring up that match, he still looks just like very youthful. And his dad was known for being very good looking and had these kind of chiseled features.
Yeah,
doesn't look a damn thing like his son, other than the fact that they were both gigantic dudes.
Yeah.
So I love Koto Nowaka. I root for Oho because he's a big guy and he's a legacy.
Yeah,
I really like Oho too.
His sumo itself has not blown me away. He has days where he is like really patient and really smart, and then he has days where he is the exact opposite of that. And I don't know if that'll just go away with age or what, but I hope to see him figure it out and stick around. Who else do I really these days like? I mean, I like Abi. I like Abi.
Yeah. I like Abi too, and I think it was bullshit how many people were talking shit about him after his Yusho win, especially his style of sumo, because like you mentioned with Takakeisho, it is a very similar style of sumo, but like, I don't know. Abi does a few other things too, but nobody talks shit about Takakeisho for his Oshizumo. But
sometimes
they want to talk.
Do.
I haven't heard it nearly as much as they talk shit about Abi. And I think that's just because everybody was pissed off that Takayasu didn't win like they wanted him to, because he kept not winning, and everybody wanted to see him finally win. But anyway, yeah.
Well, they were also mad because Takayasu got hurt and they called it like a Hanka. But I was like, this is what I said. He beat Takayasu. He beat his ass the first time.
Yeah.
Like, you can talk about him kind of jumping to the side. Takayasu seemed to almost knock himself out or whatever happened to that weird match. But the pre-playoff match, he just won fair and square. And you can't take that away from him. He beat Takakeisho really handily. Mm-hmm. I partially like Abi because I do like pusher thrusters. I also like him because he's been pretty damn consistent since he came back, to the top division. And because I'm a huge fan of his coach. Abi's coach Terao is if I cut together a highlight of all the hundreds of clips I have on this iPad of like all the sumo that I've watched and thought that match was good enough that I want to save it, I bet Terao would show up in highlight matches, win or lose, more often than anybody else. because he was just the most exciting fucking dude ever. Terao's ring sense was unparalleled. His footwork was unparalleled, and just the way he'd go at it. We don't have anything like that anymore either. Like I mean, and that's how good you had to be to like make it to Sekiwake for a tournament in the 80s. Like, just you had to be crazy.
Pass some of that on to Abi, which it does seem like Abi's ring sense has gotten a bit better lately. But, you know, to be at that level, like, just, like, how do you teach somebody that? I don't even know.
I don't know either.
That's like one
Suriashi drills. That's it.
Well, they said Terao would hit the Teppo pole 1,000 times a day. So,
goddamn.
Just pop, 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 pop. I guess my other big guy is Takayasu. I'm a big Takayasu fan. I've talked about this on Twitter. I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago, where I made an estimation of who I thought the 5 best guys in sumo were, and Takayasu was in my top 5. I think that Takayasu is a categorically better Rikishi than pretty much everybody else competing in terms of like well-roundedness, power, sumo sense, strong decision making, tactics, and just like aggression and spirit. He is just unfortunately now at an age and has been dealing with particular, like his body is breaking down in ways that is making it impossible for him to keep up consistently. But when he is in good shape, tell me he doesn't look as good as everybody. There was a while where he was one of the guys who was consistently beating Terano Fuji, and he was the only guy who could do it on the belt, is the thing. Because Terano Fuji, we all know, loses to the Daishos and the Tamawashis, and occasionally Abi and Takakeisho. But Takayasu was like, I am smart enough at this belt game that maybe I won't go chest to chest, but I can get that angle on you. I can work you shit, get you moving sideways and beat you. And like nobody else can do that because the people who try are too small to do it. Like Wakataka Kage. I have a running theory that Wakataka Kage, Hoshoryu, and Kiribayama will never beat Terano Fuji. And so far, with the exception of Waka beating him back in his like in Juryo or something, maybe Makushita, that has proven true. They have never beaten him. Because they're trying to do a style of sumo. They're writing checks. They're writing sumo checks that their sumo bodies cannot cash. Takayasu's sumo body can cash those fucking checks, and watching it do that is awesome. I just want him to get a Yusho. I don't care if he returns to Ozeki. I don't think that that's on the table because I don't think he can keep himself together for the number of tournaments it takes to return to Ozeki, but I absolutely think he could have a fucking Yusho in it. It's just his mind can hold up in the face of the rough year he had last year.
I want him to have a fucking Yusho. It's just so fucking sad when he doesn't get it.
We've been Takayasu fans for a very long time as well, and after this last year, it was rough. Like, I was very happy for Abi because he's another one of my favorites when he won that Basho. But it was also very rough to see Takayasu lose again.
And then whenever he lost against...
Not lose, but like not win the Yusho.
Yeah, the other one was against Wakataka Kage. I wanted him to beat Wakataka Kage so badly.
I can't rewatch that match. It just broke my heart. In March, that was fucking so sad for me.
I know. It was rough.
And then the Tamawashi one, he seemed kind of over it. He was like, whatever, I lost.
That's
the thing. He was a win away from the Yusho 3 times last year. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I know.
Our Ozeki didn't do that. Like, I don't know that our Yokozuna did that last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's Takayasu. He is just so damn good.
So now that we've talked about Pro Sumo a little bit, you did mention that you do kind of keep track of some of the amateur sumo clubs in the U.S. Do you ever check out some of the other international ones or anything like that?
Yeah,
I mean, of course, there's Clan Sumo,
right.
Scott Finley.
That was where I was going because Scott was a good friend of mine, and you know, nice. You got
the T-shirt and everything.
But. Yeah, so I guess I've been increasingly following since we started doing sumo because it makes me like want to see, basically trying to like, okay, I'm sizing up these amateurs because I'm like, I know that professional sumo, like I know what it's supposed to look like, and I'm not going to get to that fucking level anytime soon. But let me see like what the people who do it more casually. Let me see kind of, how they do it, where they're at, and things like that. And so I've been paying more attention to it, but I hadn't paid a lot of attention to it previously. And so, I mean, I'm trying to follow all the amateurs, especially if they put out a lot of footage. And I've seen some guys that I'm like, oh, damn, that dude's really good. Like, and I don't know names even well enough to say, but I will say there are things that are certainly done differently. Like me and my brother, we don't do the amateur sumo style, have a ref say when you go. We do like the
mutual consent.
Yeah, we do that kind of tachi-ai. And I also feel like there is not a lot of oshizumo in amateur sumo. And I talked to John Jackson about this too, and he agreed. And I think maybe part of it is because, if I had to speculate, it's because like oshizumo is where you really are beating the shit out of somebody. If you want to go whole hog on oshizumo, you are going to be smacking the crap out of people. And if you are training predominantly with like strangers or maybe friends, or even sometimes people who are like way younger than you, like minors, you know, you are not going to go in and just like akebono them to death. You're gonna do the belt because it's less painful. That's why I was excited to do it with my brother, because me and my brother know where we're at. We're like, dude, we've been beating the fuck out of each other forever. And we're fine with it. Everyone else that does sumo, I'm kind of like, okay, so what are you cool with? Like, do you mind if I do this or this or this? Or if I want them to like it and stick with it, I'm not going to come out of the gate with that. But against Max, it's like, I know I can do whatever, and he's going to dish it back if he's pissed about it, but he's not going to get mad at me personally. And I'm not going to get mad at him. I would like to see more of that watching amateur sumo, or I hope as I continue to watch amateur sumo more, because again, I haven't seen a lot of it, that I will find kind of some people who are just really willing to 100% hit him with that 80s fighting spirit, you know?
Man, we're trying to do that in Dallas. So like Corey is like a really big fan of a lot of pusher thrusters. He, you know, really, really admires Terao and that kind of style. So he wants to, he's been encouraging everybody to do it in practice, and the ones that really took to it are the women's team. Like,
oh God.
Like, so we have these two sisters, the Twister sisters, and they fucking notawa, they fucking like hammer it. Because like, you know, something, and you know, we've been doing co-ed bouts, you know, during practice. So like, you know, we fight each other, and they just fucking knock the shit out of me. They're just
they're fucking mean, dude.
Yeah, I mean, they fight on the belt, and they do like a lot of hip tosses and stuff like that. But no, they will fuck. They notawa the shit out of each other. They notawa Corey, they smack. And then like at the most recent Mighty Eagle team tournament that we did in San Antonio, it was great because Steven's a lightweight, you know, and he's got really long arms, you know, really long legs. And then there's Jared Tadlock, who is the Texas State champ, and Jared's style, Jared really
That's
does.
weird. I have a friend named Jared Tadlock who's like 7 feet tall.
Oh shit.
for like a university in West Virginia, same name, totally different guy, I'm sure.
That's fucking crazy. Yeah. But no, this Jared Tadlock, like the way he moves like a pro. Like his body movements look like a fucking pro Rikishi.
Yes.
And he has a very kind of push pull kind of style that you don't really see, you know, and he's very much like a wrestler. He actually used to be a pro wrestler.
He's very tactical.
One of our guys that does it is my old roommate, who I got into sumo pretty big, and he was a pro wrestler. He was like an acrobatic. I got to see him doing it, crazy flips and dips and shit. And he comes and does sumo with us. He's got knee troubles, and they do affect him in his sumo, which is a shame because he has zero regard for his own well-being.
One of those guys.
He hits so fucking hard at the tachi-ai. He just like, because he doesn't care. And so pro wrestlers, man. I wish I could.
Hell yeah.
There's like a scene around here. There's an indie wrestling scene. That's actually, I used to do cartoon merch for indie wrestlers around the country. And I don't know much about pro wrestling. Like, I own everything I know through these connections.
That's so badass. Hell yeah. No. But anyway, like I was talking about Steven and Jared, you know, Jared, who's probably like one of like the best amateur wrestlers or amateur sumo wrestlers that I know. Steven just hauls off and like slaps the shit out of him.
God.
And you can hear everyone in the venue is like, ooh. And then after the match, you can see like there's a picture. It's just like Steven's handprint.
Like
just like
handprint.
Oh man, I'll have to send that to you later. It's fucking gorgeous. But no, so like they've really, like Corey really has been encouraging us to you know, to work with more Oshi. And with me, he's like, you know, I have these big arms, I have like, you know, these giant legs, I could take giant steps. It was, it's logical for me to utilize, a more Oshi style. I think I should probably do more tempo, and I want to get fucking accurate. I saw this, and it's silly because it was on Hinamaru Sumo. Have you watched Hinamaru Sumo?
No, I have beef with it, but
no, that's fine. Ooh, we gotta hear about that beef in a second.
When we get to your sumo hot takes.
But there was this exercise that one of the characters was doing with like a ball like hanging from like a string, and like it was like using that to try and build accuracy. So I'm thinking maybe I should try something like that. If you get a chance to check out Raijin Sumo out of North Carolina, Eric Wynn,
yes,
he uses a lot of Oshi, and his Tachiai is like a fucking Mack truck. Like it just seriously, like you could feel the ripples in space time whenever he fucking slams into someone. It's like, damn. It's that just, and he has this like presence. It's like his face like contorts into like, he just looks like so mean, almost demonic. And then like when he steps out of the dohyo, he's all smiles and like,
He's definitely one of the bigger characters in U.S. amateur sumo, for sure.
Yeah, Eric's awesome.
All right, so you said Hinamaru Sumo, you got some beef.
Passive observation beef, but the number one thing that made me not want to watch it is that they don't have sumo bodies. Like by and large, everybody in the cast is either just kind of beefy or they're like big, but not in a way that looks like a fat person. They're big in a way that just looks like if you took someone who was beefy and then made them more square. And as someone who's had so much fun drawing like sumo bodies, I feel like a sumo manga and a sumo anime should like fucking learn how to draw sumo bodies. I mean, but that, and then the fact that, like, as far as I can tell, as an anime, it's not really animated very much, which is a problem with a lot of low budget productions. There's not a lot of animation going on, which some people don't understand. A lot of people will confuse glitz and glam, and I don't think this is happening with Hinamaru, but it happens with other things. People know when you're watching Hinamaru, you're probably doing it because you're a sumo fan and you will take whatever content you can get. But for an anime, like, I want it to be pretty, and I want it to move, and there's just a lot of ways that when you don't have a lot of money, that an anime will cut corners, and it's just one of those. That's a lot of anime. It's a lot of shows. People like them. Maybe it's got a great story. Maybe it's got great characters. I don't know, and I'm not going to find out because they don't. I don't know. They're just, it's not sumo-y enough for me. Like, you don't have to. Again, they saw the same challenge that I did regarding character design, and they turned tail and ran. They were like, oh God, how do I make Rikishi look different? Oh, what if I gave him Yu-Gi-Oh hair? Like, that's what they did. And I'm like, fuck y'all. I'm not interested.
But no, I get it. The manga is fucking great. And sometimes, and Hinamaru is definitely one of those things where it's like the manga is way cooler than the anime, but I still love
That's usually true, I've found.
All right. Well, what are some of your other sumo hot takes? Give me your spiciest.
Okay, so some of these things are, not that bad, like not too hot water territory. And then others, if you speak them publicly, like in a sumo forum online, you're going to get flamed so fucking bad that like you won't want to be a part of any community anymore. And those are things like saying that I don't think that Hakuho is the greatest sumo wrestler of all time. And the reason that is a difficult conversation to have, number one, is because we are barely out of the Hakuho era. Hakuho's fans are still very much alive and well, very active in sumo. And also, numerically speaking, there is no argument there. If you look solely at the numbers, Hakuho is the greatest sumo wrestler of all time. I refer to him, and this is my backhanded like way of not referring to him as the greatest. I always call him the most successful sumo wrestler of all time, because that as a statement is inarguable. You can pick and choose certain statistics and say that there are people who could compare or even outdo him, especially if it's from like way back in the day where comparisons get a little murky. But in general, like, no, he's the one to beat. And so when you try to have a conversation, especially with American sports fans who have just gotten off of watching this man's career, about how the ways in which he, to me, is less impressive than like a Chiyo Fuji, it never, ever gets off the ground. It gets stuck in the fucking weeds so fast because people just want to go like, Yusho, win streak, Zensho's win ratio. And I'm like, you have to look at the sumo. This is the hard part. You have to look at the sumo. You have to, number one, agree with me on what my conceptualization of sumo is and what it means to be a good yokozuna. And all those things, all those weird subjective things about projecting a sense of yourself, having a style, being able to win with your style in spite of adversity, that take me back to Chio as sort of the great example. And I think most of this conversation between people comes down to Hakuho and Chiyonofuji, partially because Taiho is a little too old for a lot of people's familiarity. But it's just that Chiyonofuji was he was an all gas, no brakes powerhouse fighter who was doing things with his 275 pounds that you couldn't see Hakuho do today. Think about the amount of trouble Ichino Joe gave everybody's ass when he arrived on the scene with his short hair back in like 2014. Mm-hmm. He was fucking people up because they just couldn't move the motherfucker. Like, he fought like a tree. He roots himself in the ground. He waits for you to get all the gas out of your tank. And then when he finally has the opportunity, he's big and he's strong. He can wrap you up and he'll do what he's got to do. He can't really do that as much these days because he has the back problems. But even then, someone who basically, does a lot of just standing still is as successful as Ichino Joe is in this era. You go back to the 80s, you had Ono Kuni. Ono Kuni was an Ichino Joe-sized wrestler who would fucking hop around on one foot like crazy before you would ever throw his ass over. Ichino Joe, Hoshoryu gets a grip on him and he just rolls him. He rolls him. The motherfucker falls right over. Like, that's just how it goes these days. Ono Kuni, no way. And yet, Chiyonofuji gets a one-hand inside grip on somebody the size of Ono Kuni, over 400 pounds. We have very few Rikishi who pass that threshold in Sekitori levels these days. And with a one-handed grip, he could yeet this motherfucker. With a two-handed grip, he could pick up and swing 550-pound Konishiki. Nobody in sumo has been able to do anything like that since the Takanohana era. I bet Baruto could. I don't think he had a lot of competition that was that big at that time because there's just not a lot of competition that's that big. That's the thing. Yeah. There aren't really any analogs for Konishiki. There's been one Konishiki. There's been the Hawaiians are kind of their own breed of like just big and strong. And before and since, there haven't been a lot of people that you can put in that same category. Yeah. It's kind of like what I was saying. If you threw Akebono at Futabayama, I think Futabayama would probably get his shit wrecked just because he would never have in a million years imagined an opponent like that because they didn't make those back then. They had tall people, they had fairly heavy people, but most of his opponents were well under 6 feet tall. Most of his opponents were under 300 pounds. 6'8", 520. What the fuck?
That's a fucking giant.
And he's good. Like, Akebono wasn't just big, he was fucking good. But anyway, point being, the lukewarm version of this is to say, I personally am more impressed by what Chiyonofuji did. But my frank opinion, and I'm working constantly on how I can finally articulate this in a way that sounds like a convincing argument because it's tough. It's, again, statistically, I'm beat. Like, there's no argument there. But in terms of like the sumo I've seen, what he could do, I think Chiyonofuji was a categorically more impressive Rikishi. And Hakuho is an extremely impressive Rikishi. Hakuho does crazy shit. I've seen Hakuho bouts that are among the most awesome of all time, just in terms of the shit that he's pulling off. Still, crazy flipping, dipping, and tripping, and all these leg throws and stuff. Those are great. I don't think it would help you if Chiyonofuji was on your ass, because nothing could save you when Chiyonofuji was on your ass. That dude was just he was the cat's pajamas.
It's true.
I do think you bring up a good point, though. Like, when comparing different Rikishi, especially from different eras, it is important to look at what kind of opponents they were going up against.
Right. There's a version of Hakuho's 63-match win streak that's on YouTube, but it's in absolute shit quality, like really low resolution of the bouts, which makes it sort of difficult to watch just because, you can't see everything very clearly. The Chiyonofuji 53-match win streak is up in great quality, several different videos of it on YouTube. And I wish someone would go back and re-upload the Hakuho, because I used to watch the Hakuho and the Chiyonofuji to try and compare and kind of formulate this opinion. And what I noticed a lot about the Hakuho ones is that motherfuckers just fall over. And I have sort of some theories about that too that might get me in hot water, and they're not.
I'd love to hear them.
Well, okay. There was a period where I went from watching a lot of 70s and 80s sumo, and then I jumped ahead to about like 2003, 2004. And I was really shocked at how much the use of things like hankas and hataki komis at least appeared to increase. And you might be able to look up the statistics of this, and it's possible that this is just the tournaments I happen to be watching. It seemed this way, and it made it seem skewed. So I haven't done the research. Maybe this is based on a false assumption. But it seemed like we got to a point where sidestepping became way more prevalent. Slapdowns became way more prevalent. People falling over and losing on their hands and losing on their stomachs became way more prevalent, rather than getting thrown or getting removed from the ring, which is what we seem to see a lot more of in the 70s and 80s. And my theory was, there's levels to this that are increasingly messy. I think that the success of the Hawaiians probably did motivate the general ballooning of Rikishi that occurred from the middle 80s onward, which is not to say that Konishiki was the first really big guy. He kind of came up at a time when there were several. Takamiyama was at the time Takamiyama was a wrestler, he might have been the heaviest wrestler ever at the end of his career.
Pretty big dude.
Because I think he broke 400. And you almost never had Rikishi over 400 pounds before 1985. But Konishiki bursts onto the scene in 1984, and you've got a couple other big guys. You've got Asashio, he's like a 400. You get Mito Izumi, who it would break 400. You get Koto Gaume, who would break 400. You're starting to see it more. But Konishiki was so good so fast. And people like to attribute that entirely to his size. That's not fair. Konishiki was one of the physically strongest dudes to ever do it. He was one of the biggest gym heads to ever do it. The amount that he was lifting as a high school student, I mean, he talks about it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That dude was a machine, but his weight was a big part of that. I mean, it powered his attack to an extent that nobody had ever really seen before, and made him probably the second strongest pusher thruster that's ever done it.
And considering his size too, I mean, he was hella athletic. I mean, just the way he could move. I mean, he was incredibly fast, going from one side of the dojo to the other in just a blink of an eye, and just pushing people out. It was just damn.
Yeah. He also follows us on Instagram.
Well, I hope I will sing his praises forever, because he's one of my very favorites.
Fuck yeah.
And I think Konishiki. So you see Konishiki showing up, and you see again, Ono Kuni, Mito Izumi, some big guys who are starting to see some really real success. Ono Kuni made Yokozuna. Konishiki should have made Yokozuna, which might be another hot take, and we can get into that. But I think I have a super strong case there. And then eventually, you get Musashi Maru and Akebono, who are also humongous and tremendously successful. People forget Musashi Maru, Akebono, 12 and 11 championships. They're both on the top 10 of all time list. That's a lot.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. For Yokozuna, they're way above average. And I wonder if Rikishi began to see the fact that we have these huge guys who are just so big that in some ways people can't deal with them. Because, Akebono was not a whiz on the belt, but he was still very tough to beat on the belt because, again, he was just so big. He would wrap you up. He'd keep his legs wide. And unless you were strong enough to destabilize him from that position, which there were a handful of guys that were like Wakano Sato, like Takano Hana, most people, they couldn't do anything. Same thing, Konishiki. Konishiki wasn't going to hit you with some crazy kake nage. That'd be ridiculous. He was just going to eclipse you and carry you out of the ring. And it worked. And I think people saw that and they were like, well, if I can just gain a lot of weight, become a pusher thruster, or maybe just kind of eat people with my body, maybe it'll be a key to success. And it must have worked to some extent, because you get a lot more bigger guys in the top division over the course of the next 20 years. Yeah. But there are certainly drawbacks, at least, especially in this era. I don't know how we had Ono Kuni back in the day, just hopping around like crazy, but there are drawbacks to being that big in terms of techniques you can use. You can't do a kake nage at 550 pounds. It's not going to happen, and it would be ridiculous if you tried it. But I mean, your balance will suffer. Not to say that these aren't the most amazingly balanced people in the world, but Konishiki, when he got big, his problem was if he started going forward, he couldn't stop himself. And if he started going backwards, he could not shift gear and return forward momentum because he just couldn't generate it from any parts of, there was just too much weight on top that was being used in those cases against him. It's why when he lost a lot after kind of the Yokozuna bid didn't work out and he sort of got bigger and bigger, it was because he was getting juked. It was because, people were figuring out how to get him to fall over. Yeah. He lost on his face a lot. And a lot of that is because of how big he was. Akebono too. You juke Akebono, he might fall over because it's just the train can't stop that quickly. It's too much. So combine that with then the introduction of the first wave of Mongolians in the 90s, right? The likes of Kyokushuzan and those guys. Kyokushuzan was one of the big reasons they added Kimarite to the official list, because he started winning in ways that had not been done before and they didn't know what to call them, which I'm sure you guys know. And they actually had to ask him to stop doing some of the things he was doing because they were afraid it was going to hurt Rikishi. So this is because obviously Mongolian sumo background, but also I wonder if there is an element to the idea that whereas before, and again, you'd have to ask a Rikishi about this. They could easily tell me, no, you're wrong, you're an idiot, fuck off. And I would agree and be like, that's fine. But whereas before, maybe the idea of winning, Konishiki said this, in the 80s, you didn't just want to win, you wanted to win with your thing, with your move, with your style. And if you didn't win with your style, it was not good enough. And that is something that is instilled in you, I assume, as part of the sumo culture. And Konishiki, of course, is a foreigner, so he adopted that culture. It wasn't from the jump. But I do feel, again, it goes back to Hakuho. What is the style of sumo? Winning. I do feel like the Mongolian wrestlers, a lot of them, obviously not all of them, Teruno Fuji's an awesome example, again, of a sublime yokozuna, a great style of sumo, an adherence to that style, a personality in that style. But the Mongolian Rikishi were not known for that. They were known for being technical wizards who could win in crazy situations under crazy circumstances. They were not trying, as far as I could ever see, to project themselves into their sumo to win in a certain way. They were just like doing what they got to do, and they were amazing at it. But they didn't have that sort of Kiseno Sato vibe where it's just like, I want to get my left hand inside, and if I get my left hand inside, I'm going to win every time, which I really like. But I think you combine that, the ballooning of Rikishi, you know, which sort of increases power at the offset of speed and certain ability to do certain techniques, plus the laxing of the adherence to ideals of sumo that say you need your own brand, you need to win in a certain way, and you go more to just like, well, just win.
Yeah.
Then, well, what's the natural conclusion? If this huge dude gets sidestepped, he's going to either run himself out of the ring or fall over. I'm going to start sidestepping. I'm going to start slapping down. I'm going to start doing what I can to get him to run out of the ring or fall over. I may wish that I was a big beefy guy who could just walk people out. I may wish I was a Chiyono Fuji who could pick up a 600-pound man and yeet him off out of the ring. But isn't it a lot easier if I just try to like, you know, just kind of slap him down? And that is my ongoing theory, that sort of led to the competition in sumo being a bit less, it's a bit more lackluster, starting around, I started to see it around 2002, 2003, the end of the Musashi Maru era. Takanohana was out. Asashoryu was just destroying everybody. And Asashoryu was amazing. Like, the reason that the guys who were so dominant is because they were incredible fighters in perhaps an era where it felt almost like a lot of that shit that everybody seemed to know in the 70s. Like, you had to know how to do everything, you had to know how to fight like Hakuho, but with 100 fewer pounds to even hang around in Makuuchi in the 70s. Now it feels like if you get even an Enho or an Ura who, like, they're exciting, but they're exciting because they tend to use rare Kimarite. There's not always a lot of like minute to minute stuff going on. You go back, you watch Wakashimazu fight, and every half second he is doing something with his arms, with his body, with his legs, with his whatever. And that's because he was a dude who weighed like probably 260, 270. I mean, you know, in the middle 80s, fighting Konishiki, fighting Asashio, fighting Kotokaze, fighting Onokuni, fighting these big fucking dudes. He wasn't Chiyono Fuji Herculean strength. It was just that 70s technique holdover that was enough for him to remain Ozeki until, you know, he retired under whatever circumstances. And we don't have a lot of that anymore. I think if we could get back to a place where we had that level of technique, but with more of kind of the balanced body you see in some people today, where they're not so big that they're super susceptible to those kind of anti-sumo moves, you would get people who looked more like Hakuho. Haruma Fuji, great example. Brilliant technician, not gifted the same body as Hakuho. If he was a little bit taller and a little bit heavier and a little bit stronger, I bet he would have been taking away from Hakuho's title pool a lot more, you know? Asashoryu even, super strong, physically very strong. You hear stories, it's like, oh, he was a big gym head too. Of course, there was an age factor. Like, I think you fight like Asashoryu for as long as he did. I feel like you're kind of running on borrowed time. I feel the same way about the guys in the 80s. You keep in mind, I sing the praises of Onokuni. He's the youngest Yokozuna to ever retire. I mean, because he was giving it his all with that frame for so long that by the time he hit 28, he was breaking down already. It's just, I don't know. I think it was just something different. Maybe that's a trade-off you want. We have Yokozuna who could fight on to 36, even if maybe they shouldn't have. That's my other take. Yeah. Here's my real hot take. I think Hakuho inflated his career artificially inflated his career with the way that he peculiarly used his Yokozuna Kyujo privilege in a way that was not super precedented. People like to talk shit on Kiseno Sato. You've got to understand the circumstances. Kiseno Sato had never missed a match in his entire career. At the point where that happened. He also required serious surgery for a major injury that fucked up his entire fighting style and was pressured felt pressure not to get surgery. You know, the back and forth. You guys know the story, right?
Yeah.
So people were like, oh, Kiseno Sato sat out 7 times. Takanohana sat out 8 times or whatever it was. That's true. Hakuho didn't have a streak that long. What Hakuho did instead was from 2015 onward. So for the second entire half of his career, 7 years out of 14 years as a Yokozuna, he was a part-time Yokozuna. He sat out part or all of at least one tournament, I believe, every year from 2015 on, including some years like 2021, or 2020, where he was barely around at all because it was reaching the end. He dragged that shit out.
He did.
Kaiho got hurt like twice and was like, fuck it, I'm done. Like Kitano Umi wanted to retire earlier, and the association was like, please God, stay around until we open the new Kokugikan. It was a different thing. And maybe you can blame the Takanohana thing, setting a precedent for that. You can blame Kiseno Sato because it maybe made him feel like he had more leeway to do that. But at the end of the day, if he had retired after it became clear he could no longer uphold his duties, he still would have had the most titles of all time. I did the math on that. He had beat the record by 2015. He could have dipped out, but he's Hakuho. So he was like, fuck it. As long as when I show up, even if it's only twice a year, I win, then they can't really give me too much shit for it. And he did that for 7 years, which is crazy. That's longer than most Yokozuna are Yokozuna. And I don't think people factor that into sort of the conversation. Not that even takes that much away from his statistical dominance. He's still, even with that in, he's still numerically the top dog. But to me, that should be an asterisk on his record.
So do you feel that kind of like, because, there's the quantitative, like what's measurable, the quantitative aspect of Hakuho Sumo that is undeniable. But then like I see a lot of people have more of an issue with the qualitative side of his sumo and like his conduct. People would say that he didn't have the hinkaku, or that whenever he beat Terunofuji, his roar, like that was unseemly, and so I could see that like ruffling some feathers and pissing some people off. But looking back on it and seeing that as his final show, then it's like, okay, that was just him doing it with gusto.
It his way.
Yeah. I hate that whenever they say, oh, well, that's my style, it's just winning. To me, I felt like he was pulling wins out of thin air. He would pull techniques and pull like crazy wacky ways to get out of situations just like on the fly, and it was just almost like it was almost magical in a way, I guess. I know that sounds so fucking cheesy, but to me, like Hakuho could make something out of nothing, and that's kind of like how I felt what his personal style was. And I love that he did it. Like, I don't know, I just thought that was a cool way to end your career. Is that conduct becoming of a Yokozuna? Probably not. So I could accept that criticism.
I never begrudged Hakuho of the yell, and you can check this on Twitter because I tweeted about it. I was like, don't give him shit for this. Like, you cannot give this man shit for this. What we ask of Rikishi is so like inhuman to contain themselves in those moments. And Hakuho in that moment was probably having he was having the biggest moment in sumo. I mean, really, it was the greatest of all time, statistically. Going out on a Zensho Yusho, a comeback from grievous injuries, fighting essentially with one leg, and he still beat everybody in the top division on his way to that flawless victory. Like, that is emotional. That was intense. That was a scream out of like, oh my God, I did this. It was a scream out of, holy fuck, my knee is on fire. I mean, cannot ask that man not to do that, because nobody in the fucking world could have kept it in, in that circumstances. And no one will ever be in that exact circumstance again. I mean, the Takanohana demon face is the closest analog. But even that, the stakes were not nearly as high. Like, Hakuho had so much more on the line. So I never held that against him, and I would clown on anybody who tried to. What I held against Hakuho in that tournament that I thought was despicable was the Shodai match. That pissed me the fuck off and continues to piss me the fuck off. Here's the thing. This is the other asterisk I think you should give Hakuho, which is not to say that he's the only Rikishi or Yokozuna to ever do shit like this. But the idea is that you as a yokozuna, you get your hands tied behind your back a little bit in a way because you're supposed to just be that good. So the idea is that when you're yokozuna, there are some things you just shouldn't do. They're not going to say in writing you can't do them. They may only give you a little bit of a verbal lashing if you do them too much. But the idea is that the rank is above them. And some of the things that Hakuho really liked to do, and one of the things I would argue he helped to kind of popularize that's far more common now than it seemed to be back in the day, one of them would be demanding deference at the tachiai. I don't like that at all. How he would sit there and stare at people until they put their hands down first so that he could always decide when and how the match starts. If you are the greatest of all time, why do you need to do that? The former greatests of all time did not feel the need to do that. That was one of the things that rubbed me the wrong way. Obviously, his particular style of kachiage, people say, oh, it's a move. Ramming your elbow bone into people's skulls and jaws so that they get disoriented. I have not seen anyone other than like Osunarashi do that. Yeah. It was, again, a post-Hakuho Rikishi. I have seen kachiage, but as a move, it looks a lot different than what Hakuho was doing. Hakuho was elbowing people in the face, and he was doing that, and he was slapping the dog shit out of people on a very consistent basis. Again, I don't really have an issue with slaps. I maybe have an issue with, like, it is less, that's what it comes down to. The word's less impressive. When you feel the need to have to try and knock somebody out like he did to Myogiryu in 2012 at the jump, you feel the need to have to control the start of the match from the beginning, even when it sort of scoffs at the traditional understanding of the rules. You feel the need to deny Shodai a tachiai because you know you couldn't take it. Like, if you have to win under those circumstances, if you can only win when you show up to work twice a year, then it's time to go. And he did not go.
Give somebody else a chance.
When most other Rikishi in his position, well, then again, there's never been a Rikishi in his position, so it's hard to say. There's so many things that are exceptional about Hakuho in his career that explain, I think, the reason that it went the way that it did. There won't ever be another Hakuho in so many ways. That is absolutely true. And again, incredible Rikishi. I don't think that he is the greatest to ever do sumo. I don't think that if we had a dream match in heaven between him, not that he's dead, but everybody else, between him and X number of other guys, that he would be the one to come out on top. And I can't argue that point other than just encouraging people to go back and watch more sumo from the past, to watch it religiously, to watch Hakuho religiously. But I don't know.
You've done the research, like literally watched.
It's a process is the thing. That's why I hesitate to talk about it, just because I don't feel like these thoughts are fully formed. I don't feel like, but I promised you guys hot takes. And so I feel I could just, and maybe you'll get hate mail and that'll be cool because that means you've made it, I think.
I think that you do have valid reasons for having these opinions though, because I can tell you really do the work. You know, you really study how they do their sumo, and you look at the numbers and you look at all the details and you take all of that information together to formulate your own judgment. So I'm not going to hold it against you.
It's very academic, and I fucking love it.
Yeah, no, you're serious about sumo. You're serious about studying sumo, and that is very admirable. And I think, you know, it gives more weight to these very, very spicy takes that you have.
Very epistemologically sound spicy takes.
We only got a few minutes left. Besides Hakuho, any other hot takes for us?
I mean,
any hot takes about amateur sumo?
No, I'm not in it enough to know yet. I don't know. Some opinions I thought I have about amateur sumo, the more I watch, the more I'm like, oh no, yeah, there's just some really good. I think in general, for obvious reasons, like it doesn't have, I wish the tachiai were stronger. I don't like the ref says go tachiai at all. And I don't know if, could you hold a tournament where you're like, actually, we're doing fucking street rules, homie?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it probably wouldn't be sanctioned by the federation, but I mean, that's not to stop anyone from saying, all right, let's do this, like, you know, this way.
I don't know. I feel like it adds a certain, and this is almost me going against what I just said, because obviously a synchronized tachiai is perfection and great. And when it was all synchronized, like 70s, they always are like in sync all the time. Yeah. It's great. Into the early 80s, before the standing tachiai thing, it was great all the time. And then after that, pretty great generally. But nowadays, there's a lot of gamesmanship at the tachiai, has been for like the last 15, 20 years. Yeah. And it kind of pisses me off when I feel like you are like claiming rank or whatever. But as an element of the play, it can be interesting, especially if it's two equally ranked Rikishi and it's like, oh, they're trying to. One of the things Hakuho did that was tactically brilliant, I'll give him this, it was tactically brilliant. There's a Hakuho match against Takakeisho. I think it might have been after Takakeisho beat him, though, like one time that Takakeisho beat him. I'm not sure, though. But Hakuho does a little bit of like chicanery with the start, and he eventually is like, I'm going to get Takakeisho to put his hands down. And once he does, what Hakuho does to initiate the match is he stands there. He's fully standing up, and he waits for Takakeisho to get all the way down in a double fist down crouching position. And Hakuho, I've never seen anyone else do this. He goes from standing to Tachi immediately. He goes from standing up to just like, boom, go, so that he could get the jump on Takakeisho and completely cut out the possibility of Takakeisho starting his momentum and his movement. And I was like, does that take away kind of the spirit of the Tachi and the sport? Yes. Was it a smart move to do to beat this guy? Yes, it was. And that sort of sums up my opinion about Hakuho's career in general. And I think Hakuho, in terms of his, I think he was very dignified. You ever read the way he talks? He's a huge student of sumo. He is in many ways like, this man probably loves sumo more than anyone alive today. I mean, you can't take that away from him, but he is also a reformer in a lot of ways. And his career was sort of a reformist career, I think. And maybe the rest of the world should catch up, but maybe something important in sumo could get lost along the way if more people were like Hakuho. I don't think his behavior outside the ring was that bad. The extra shoves and shit kind of, they rub me the wrong way, but like they happen. You don't really see them happen with a lot of other figures to the same extent.
Oh, Oyama
one
does
where he nails Ichino Joe in the face after he's clearly out like several seconds, which reminds me of a time Asashoryu did the same thing to Kiseno Sato in the face twice. Like those two, there's something about it. But I don't think you should nitpick that shit and say, oh, he wasn't a dignified. Like I think he showed a ton of dignity in class, especially under a lot of increased adversity. And I think he deserves credit for that. However, Hakuho fanboys would have him, they would have him enthroned. To him, he is an unassailable figure who you cannot critique, whose career you cannot analyze outside of goat emoji, goat emoji, goat emoji. And that shit wears me out. And that's why I like Sumo Twitter a lot better, because people on Sumo Twitter, Sumo Facebook, holy shit, it's kind of a cesspool sometimes, especially at tournament time. Sumo Twitter, there are people who know more than there are people who know a lot more than me, who educate me on stuff, either because they can work Sumo DB like a wizard, they have all this statistical information, or some of them are like people in sort of a John Jacks zone where they've just been sumo insiders for a long time and they can inform you, and they have polite discussion. The only downside is it's Twitter, so you can't fucking type more than 240 characters at a time, which makes having discussion really hard. So I love all my Sumo Twitter people. You guys are awesome. If you're listening to this, you rock, and thanks for teaching me as much as you have. Sumo Facebook, the communities have brought me a lot. They are great, but the sort of openness, the free-for-all of it, and the fact that you get like some of these groups, I'm a moderator for Sumo. It's got 20,000 plus members in it. And it is hard to keep that shit civil sometimes. And it really can burn me out.
Yes, exactly. So Noah, it has been so fucking fun talking to you today.
Thanks.
Where can other people find you on the internets?
So if you're interested in my sumo content, which I'm going to assume you are, the best place to see art, it would be my Instagram, which is my full name. So that's Noah Wellbrock-Talley as one word, NoahWellbrockTalley.
Very brave, just putting your government name out there like that.
You know what? I have a tangent for that too, but I would want you to cut it out. So we're going to talk about that later. Anyway, so yeah, follow me there. You'll see my sumo art. And then I am not like brand savvy enough to make, some people will make like 40 Instagram accounts and it's like, this is for my photography and this is for my drawings of bears and this is for my Etsy where I make crochet owls. Not me. I'm like, whatever I make, it goes on the same Instagram. So you'll see the sumo stuff, you'll see the realistic sumo stuff, the cartoon sumo stuff, cartoons of other things, D&D stuff. If I ever make paintings again, you'll see those. You know, whatever it is, it goes on the Instagram. But if you want to see clips of retro match footage, my opinions on everything sumo, and also my sumo art, then follow me on Sumo Twitter. at Sumo Zeki, which is the word sumo and then Zeki. It's both a play on sumo and ozeki, and also the fact that Zeki is the nominal honorific that's added to the end of Rikishi dance because I think I'm clever. And so that's where I am probably most active, and that's kind of my sumo space that I like the most. I am a moderator of some sumo Facebook groups. All the listeners of this podcast are probably already members of those groups, so I don't know that I need to plug them, but follow World of Sumo, follow Sumo, join the group, make the culture a little nicer in triple S, please. Like, here's my disclaimer for the whole episode. If you have a piece of information that you think completely debunks some of my whack ass theories that I went on, please present that to me in like a respectful way, and I will fully accept it and change my mind. Because again, I am just working on these things. This is based on what I've observed about sumo that has informed my opinions as they are, but they're a work in progress. It's why I don't talk about them too much unless I'm asked, but I was asked.
He was asked.
And so if you're listening to this and you're going, actually, idiot, wrestlers were fat in 1975 and there were tons of Hataki Komis, then I'll be like, okay, you're right. Then I have to change, I would love to see that. But anyway, yeah, that's my disclaimer. Don't add me as a friend on Facebook, please. Lots of people see me on there through sumo and like, I'm going to see if he wants to be friends with me. And I don't. I'm sure you're great, but I don't know you. And, I'm friends with Matt through exactly that interaction because I clicked on his profile and was like, all right, this guy seems cool. But half the time they're like, send me a friend request. I go to their profile. I'm like, fuck, you really like Candace Owens. Damn. And then I'm like, I don't want this request. Like, you did not get enough out of me as a person to think this through, dude. So
yep,
yeah.
I've definitely had that exact experience before.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the show. We look forward to talking to you again.
Sweet.
Dude, fucking... No one knows his shit.
He knows his shit. Not only that, he's just not only so knowledgeable, he's fucking passionate.
He's like a sumo academic.
I love that. I fucking love that about him.
Part of the reason the episode was so long is because it was so fascinating just to hear him like info dumping about all this, like, the history of like sumo from the 70s until now, and then how all this shit's connected, and it's like the red strings are being connected to one another, and it was just fucking mind-blowing.
He knows his shit, and it makes sense, and you just feel like you learned some shit.
Exactly, and he's a fantastic ass artist. We're gonna put some of his artwork up on our Instagram. We're also going to try to splice in some of it on the YouTube version of this episode.
And you're also going to just see it on the internet no matter what. Sumo Twitter especially. So
absolutely. He has a Redbubble shop.
Yeah.
As do we.
Yeah.
So you can go there, purchase some of his shit, purchase some of our shit. Of course, ours is Sumo Punx. His is... I have no fucking clue, but we'll figure it out and put it in the description.
We will. We'll put it in the description.
You can also find us all over the social medias. We're on the Facebook, the Twitters, the Instagrams. You can email us. It's always going to be Sumo Punx. Punx is spelled with an X unless it's on Twitter. Then it's Punx Sumo, because I fucked that shit up.
But, yep, that's our show, and we got lots more other shit coming up, so, yeah, we're gonna be throwing a whole bunch of content at y'all soon.
And definitely look out for us doing commentary on the SoCal Sumo Open. Again, that's going to be on the
Maximum Effort Studios YouTube channel.
Yes, what he said. All right, that's it. Bye!
Bye!